flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to the Board of Commissioners meeting for Monday, December 7, 2009. The first item on the agenda is the minutes of the public meeting of November 23, 2009.
Will they be approved?
Second.
I have some minor edits. Just on bottom of page 3 and top of page 4, it states that we have a fund balance as per the Home Rule Charter. It's actually as per Ordinance 2008-5 in both instances. No other changes.
Will they be approved with the amendment?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next is notice of executive meeting. An executive meeting was held in the Powys Caucus Room in the Township Building prior to the public meeting of December 7, 2009 to discuss real estate, litigation, and personnel matters. The next item on the agenda, unfortunately, is not going to be going forward this evening. We were scheduled to appoint a new township manager. We're all very disappointed that we had a very qualified candidate, and we had thought we had worked everything out. Unfortunately, when the candidate handed in his resignation at his current employer, apparently his employer made him an offer that he decided he couldn't refuse. So we are unable to move forward with that tonight, and we will renew our search for a township manager. Moving on, the next item on the agenda is the EAC request to renew Radnor membership in ICLEI. Is there somebody here on that?
I can speak to that issue. I had been contacted by several members of the EAC. They apparently had a membership in the ICLEI last year. This is a professional organization that provides software and other resources to help Radnor Township develop a greenhouse gas emissions inventory. And this membership cost is $600 per year, and they're asking us to renew the membership so they can continue on this process. The advantage to using this service and to having these inventories that we will be able to request grant money for efficiency money to improve energy use, reduce energy use, and improve efficiency in the township. So I would recommend that we move to pay this $600 membership fee for 2010. Pay it now, though.
Is it in the budget? I mean, help me understand what happened here. Are we current members?
John?
Sorry?
Are we current members of this organization?
I believe you're current members. Yes.
Excuse me?
Sorry, I believe you are current members, yes. And I put it on the agenda because it was a large expenditure for this, and I wasn't sure what the board's position would be.
$600 is a large expenditure, a large cost for membership?
Yes.
And what is your position as manager?
I'm okay with it. I view this as something, if you wanted to spend the money, that's certainly...
This is 2010 money? Or is it 2009 money?
Be 2009 money.
Is it in the budget?
I would assume it would be, yes.
Okay. I'm just perplexed why the request is here.
I'm sorry?
I'm just a little perplexed if it was in the budget and it was in the plan, why the request is here.
First of all, it's an expense that I was not familiar with on a topic that I know very little about, and if it's something that is the board is part of your policy, then I wanted to confirm that that's what you wanted to do.
I'm okay with authorizing if it's in the budget.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, I move to authorize the $600 expenditure for renewal of the ICLEI membership,
Second?
Provided it was budgeted, or?
provided that it's budgeted.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is departmental reports.
No.
Next is committee reports, community development. First is the announcement of one vacancy on the rental housing board beginning January 1, 2010. Anybody's interested, send your name in to Bill Martin. The next item is the public hearing for the intermunicipal liquor license transfer regarding Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ed McHugh, and I am here on behalf of Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza of Wayne, LLC, is the applicant's name. Here with me is Christopher Blythe, who is, Christopher, what is your position?
Development partner.
I'm sorry?
Development partner,
De-
regional manager.
Regional manager. And also here is William Leahy, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza. We're here tonight for a intermunicipal liquor license transfer application. What Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza would like to do would be to open up a restaurant here in Radnor Township at 309 East Lancaster Avenue, specifically Stuart G. At this restaurant, Anthony's would like to serve alcoholic beverages in its complement to its menu and its food. And to that end, it is entered into a agreement to purchase a restaurant liquor license from Boothwyn Township and bring it into Radnor Township. Prior to actually making the application to the liquor board to do that, because it's an intermunicipal liquor license transfer, the applicant must come before the receiving municipality and ask permission for the receiving municipality to have the license. What I would like to do tonight, if it's all right with the members of the board, is I've prepared, well, actually, Mr. Blythe has brought a folder with him, and I have an exhibit packet that I'd like to share with the board members. If it's all right with the board, I was just going to make a presentation. Mr. Blythe will be here. He's very familiar with not only the history of Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza. They do have 20 restaurants, most of which are located in South Florida. There is one that's targeted to be opened up in North Wilmington in January. And Mr. Blythe will be available for any questions. I will be available for any questions, but I'll just make a brief presentation with regards to this location and what our proposed operation is at this location. The concept of Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza is to provide a high-quality Italian-American fare in a casual, family-oriented atmosphere. The philosophy of Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza is to provide a simple menu, but provide the customer high-quality dishes. This location is still under construction, actually still in the planning stage.
And just tell us again, I know you gave us the street number on Lancaster Avenue, but can you just orient us
Next to the Acme.
where it is?
It's the Acme Center, the right-hand side of the Acme Center?
Okay,
Where the drugstore was.
Yes.
right.
Okay.
Becker, then Rite Aid.
Yeah.
It's my understanding within that commercial development, it's store G, it's at.
Second one in.
It's
from the-
actually-
From the right-hand side end, yeah.
Yeah, as referencing the rendering of, I think it's exhibit,
Exhibit A.
Exhibit A.
So do you have a lease for those premises
do.
already?
Yes, sir.
Are they doing, I don't, are they doing construction work in there to set you up, or is it open-ended as to when you would actually move in?
The landlord is responsible to do some landlord work before I'm able to take possession of it.
Okay.
I believe they're pulling permits right now for their end of the work, or in the
And
process
if-
of.
Because if I'm understanding this document I'm looking at, which I may not be fully understanding it, but it looks like the Acme goes away, they put something big on the left side, from my left side of what I'm looking at, and a series of other stores. So if they don't lease this out, and you ultimately decide not to go, I'm sure there's some kind of contingencies in your lease that lets you out. What are the implications of what we're doing here tonight, of this request?
We're going in with 2 other restaurants on the site that is the drugstore. On the right-hand
You say
side,
we're
that's,
going in with two, you're putting, you?
they're proposed to go in. My going in is not contingent on them going in.
Okay. And then when you say "we," it's not you.
Meaning
it's-
all 3 of us are going through the landlord process
Okay,
in a timely fashion at the same time.
okay.
So we're not contingent on each other.
And if you don't go in for whatever reason, or this doesn't materialize?
I'm going in.
Okay, but do you then sell the liquor license to somebody else? Is that what you would do?
I can probably,
Okay, that's fair, I just want.
what happens is, right now it's in the planning stage. If the board, this board was to approve this transfer, we would then submit an application to the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board on what they call prior approval, which really would just be submitted on plans, and then actually get the approval from the Liquor Control Board, and then they can go ahead and start construction, and then some of the terms of the lease would then become effective.
If we approve this lease for this location, it's this location only, and if you wanted to move it somewhere else in Radnor, you'd have to come back for another hearing? not?
Well, no, that's, what would happen, if it was moved somewhere else in Radnor Township, that applicant would have to, not necessarily come before this board, but they would have to post the placard and put the public on notice that they're making an application to, and if someone wanted to protest or make a petition to intervene, they can certainly do that with the liquor board. I think the statute says that once it comes into Radnor, it can't be transferred out of Radnor for a period of 2 years. That's, once the liquor license comes into Radnor Township, it must stay here for 2 years, and then it can be moved out after that 2 years passes.
But could we make the approval condition on not moving it somewhere else in Radnor? Without- I mean,
I'm sure we can certainly consider that.
but what you're going to do is you're going forward, you're not going to apply to the Liquor Control Board till you get approval from your landlord and everything?
Until
Until we get approval from the
Until we
board
get-
on this transfer.
until we get approval
Then we
from the
immediately
board.
approach.
And then we'll make the application to the liquor board on prior approval, just on plans, until we get an idea from the liquor board that we're going to get our approval from the liquor board, and then we can go ahead and start construction and make major investments, capital investments in this project.
But if we requested that you come back to this board for approval, if you wanted to move it somewhere else in Radnor, you could agree or not agree to that?
It would certainly be, yeah, I mean, we
Absolutely.
would certainly consider that, yeah.
That's not a problem.
Can
I'm
I-
sorry, I misunderstood your question.
The implications of your answer are if you didn't get approval, you wouldn't open the store, the
That's
pizza
right.
establishment?
I have a fully executed lease on that
No,
space
but
right now.
Your attorney answered the question, the way he answered the question was you want approval to get the liquor license transferred before you commence your construction costs.
That's my understanding of how this process is going to work, yes.
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 Well, what you need first is our approval to transfer it in, and with that, you then go to the Liquor Control Board and go through the normal process there,
That
That's
is
correct.
correct? All right, one of the conditions that we usually have attached to the transfer, an intermunicipal transfer, is that if you sell the business, that the next owner would have to come back to this board and go through the same process. Is that an acceptable condition?
I think that's something that,
Could you say that again, sir?
Yeah, if you were to sell the business, if
Anthony?
Coal-Fired Pizza Wayne LLC
Mhm.
were to sell the business to somebody else, it would be a requirement that that person would have to come back to us to get approval to continue to operate in that location.
I mean, I think that that's reasonable, and I would certainly discuss that with Mr. Blythe as far
Okay,
as.
I'd ask you to consider that particular
That's-
condition.
And I think that,
I think the bigger issue is if they once a liquor license is it's this area, what are we approving before we
I
approve
think
it?
they're both situations that we should impose as conditions,
Yeah.
if they're willing to accept them.
Because my concern is they could just move it somewhere else in Radnor if this business went out of business. That was my concern. without
And
coming
not to
us.
take the cart before the horse, but we'd like you to think in terms of limitation on hours, takeout, limitation on takeout, things of that nature, because we have routinely discussed those conditions and secured agreement on those conditions from other restaurants in town.
And that's absolutely fine. I think what the board may want to consider is, in conjunction with maybe the liquor board, there's a mechanism that the liquor board uses called a conditional licensing agreement, that I think that, Mr. Blythe, along with my partner, he's involved with the transactional aspect of this. I mean, we can certainly talk about those,
Okay.
I mean,
I just wanted to get them up front before we
It's not
got
a
into a
problem.
big discussion, okay?
Absolutely.
because I think the proposed hours of operation are like 10 PM on weekday nights.
We're a lunch and dinner restaurant, so we open up at 11:30 for lunch. During the week, we'll probably close at like 10 o'clock, and on the weekends, 11 o'clock. The liquor aspect in the bar, we do about 10% mix, 10-12% mix on a liquor to food. The restaurant closes, everything closes. We don't stay extended hours for the bar. That's not who we are, that's not who the brand is, that's not who I want to be. So it's probably 10 o'clock again. Business dictates, probably 10 o'clock during the week, 11 o'clock on the weekends.
Does
That's what we're
Anthony's
gonna approach
sell
for.
takeout beer?
We do not.
So just for my own frame of reference, is like Bertucci's viewed as your competition versus the local pizza
Our
place?
pizza's
I call-
better.
Versus the local pizza place that I call up to pick
Yeah.
up my pizza?
I think that's a pretty good comparison. I mean,
Sure.
yeah, because I think Anthony's Coal Fired is more of it's an upscale
If you
restaurant.
can look at the brochure real quickly, it's almost like a boutique type of atmosphere. We have a lot of Frank Sinatra, Marilyn Monroe pictures in the restaurant. It's a lot of black granite. Our bars are black granite. A lot of the caps on the walls are black granite. It's a deep mahogany. You can kind of see from some of the photos on the interior. It's a very upscale, polished place that serves pizza and wings. We are a full-service restaurant. It's sit-down. Staff is well-educated. It's a simple menu. It's a very nice atmosphere.
So if you say you're going to be open till 10 and 11 on weekends, we can put that in writing that that's it? You're not going to be open till 12 and 1 o'clock on weekends?
I'll
and-
guarantee you that.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's what we'd
Right.
like to see.
On a Friday or Saturday, it may 11 to 11:30, depending on the Saturday nights, but in this market, I'd be hard pressed to say it goes past 11 o'clock. Honestly, we're not looking to chase that late night crowd. We are a lunch and dinner restaurant. We're not a bar. We offer alcoholic beverages.
On the weeknights, 10 o'clock is a reasonable hour to close, and you'd commit to that?
I think so, yeah.
And then 11:30 on weekends? All right, thank you.
Just to expand a little bit on Mr. Blaze, I think the inside is going to be centered around the coal. There's going to be a huge coal fire.
That's the only heat source in the restaurant. We have 2 coal-fired ovens that sit in the middle of the restaurant. All the cooking is done in that. There's no frying going on. There's no fryers. It's old-world baked coal-fired ovens. It's very simple, but very nice.
Inside's going to be about 3,000 square feet. It's going to be, the capacity will be somewhere around 75 to 80 patrons at one time. There will be a bar in there. There'll be several flat-screen TVs. I believe that will be the extent of the entertainment, with the exception of maybe some ambiance music, background music.
There's going to be a fireplace on the inside, a 2-sided fireplace for, again, an atmosphere, creating that atmosphere of warmth and comfort.
About 16 or 17 bar stools inside will be the extent of the seating at the bar. As you can see from the menu, the popular items are cold fire pizza, cold oven roasted chicken, Italian salads, and New York style cheesecake. There will be approximately 20 to 25 employees, part-time and full-time.
On any given shift, between 10 and 12 people.
Okay. All of the employees will be ramp certified and ramp trained, meaning that the premises itself will be ramp certified. So not only does the owner and the manager have to be ramp trained, but at least 50% of the employees must be at any one time trained ramp. There has to be signage
You
posted.
gotta tell us what ramp is.
Well, it's, I'm sorry, excuse me, Responsible Alcohol Management Program
Okay.
is something that's sponsored by the Liquor Control Board, and it's given, it's a seminar given at various locations
It's
throughout
done
the,
at orientation.
throughout the
We'll do that.
Commonwealth.
In our brand, we do that orientation.
I mean, they can have that themselves so long as they pay a certain fee. The ramp will actually come out to their
We're also
location.
very involved with the state police for that aspect.
Right.
As a company, we get very involved with the local state police to help kind of run these programs to make sure the staff is up to speed on exactly what they need to be doing. Serving alcohol safely is a huge responsibility, and we take it very seriously.
How does South Florida chain pick North Wilmington and Radnor to come up to? Just, I'm curious more than anything.
I was born and raised in Bucks County.
Okay?
I'm very familiar with some of the gentlemen running the company down there, and we came to agreement that I would develop this market. And being from Bucks County and knowing this area, this is a great market. You guys have a great town.
I don't really have anything more for the board's consideration. If you have any questions,
Any questions from the board?
I guess just a question, maybe John Rice knows. What was I believe we have 45 days to act on this from the date of application?
45 days to make a decision. It can be extended to 60 if the applicant agrees.
Okay.
And then if there's any kind of an approval or a denial or approval with conditions, there's got to be a written resolution adopted by the board.
Okay.
I just have a couple questions.
sure.
The application was filed November 4th, 2009, and that's on file with leases and drawings of the documents. The township ordinance has some other information I'm not sure has been filed yet. I just want to ask Mr. McHugh whether there's a requirement that the completed application required by the Liquor Control Board, including the applicant's criminal history and any liquor code violations, be filed. Has that been filed with the township?
That hasn't been filed with the board yet, so it hasn't been filed with the township, yes, yet. That's, I think you may be referring to the application which would be submitted to the liquor board. Mr. Blythe and his partners would have to go through a criminal background check, and
But can that be submitted to the
Sure.
township? I mean, it's a requirement of the township code.
that's,
There's-
we have no problem doing that, absolutely.
Well, that has to be submitted before approval?
Part of the application
Yeah,
process.
that's what he's saying.
Actually, the resolution has to go up. Your resolution would have to go up.
Before you go to the Liquor Control Board. Right.
That would, your resolution would have to go up with the application to the Liquor Control Board. They won't accept the application unless there's some sort of resolution from the receiving municipality.
Right. Right, but there's if you look at Chapter 109 of the Township's Code, there's some information.
Okay.
I mean, and that's one of the things that's required. There's also a requirement of, and I think you filed this tonight, with existing liquor licenses within 200 feet of the property.
Do we have a list of those?
There's a requirement that churches, hospitals, schools, playgrounds within 300 feet. I think you've addressed the business plan, which is hours of operation and the facility itself. There's also a requirement that zoning classifications within 500 feet of the property be submitted. And that
Okay.
may just be, marking the zoning map of the township with your location and what zoning district it's in. So those, looking through what was filed on the 4th, I didn't see those additional things, and I think the board ought to have all that information in front of you before you make a decision.
We have no problem submitting that to the board.
Should we then have an agreement to extend the time to act on the application? I realize it's probably not considered to be complete until these items are in, but out of an abundance of caution, I wouldn't want to get us into a deemed approval situation.
Well, right now, we're looking at, you have one more meeting this year, next Monday. So if we extend it 60 days, you're pushing this out to the full 60, you're looking at probably your reorganization meeting to do the resolution that night.
Okay.
That's 60 days from,
But Hank raised the point, has the clock actually started if it's an incomplete application?
well, we accepted it. It's got a date of November 4th. I think if you,
Well, technically, we got 31 days in December, so the 60th day is going to run on the 3rd of January, isn't it?
which is a Sunday, which advances the day till Monday.
Yeah, okay.
So, so you're okay with the 60 days if the applicant is okay with that. That'll give, since they only have one more meeting, which is next Monday, you get the rest of the information in, and then, the board can officially act on this between, well, at your meeting on the 4th. If you want to put it back on the agenda for next Monday, you can discuss it some more next Monday also.
We certainly don't have any objection to the extension of time for 60 days.
Well, once you get the information in, the
Okay.
documents, whatever's needed, and work with Mr. Granger and Mr. Rice on that, and if we can do it on the 4th of January, we'll do it then. Otherwise, we can do it later on that month, because we have 2 meetings that month.
Okay.
All right? Question, John, are you done with your questions? Yeah, the question I had, as I read the intermunicipal transfer portion of Liquor Control Act, we can only turn this down if there is a determination made that the license coming in would be against public health, safety, and welfare. And along those lines, we normally have had the police department do a little investigation. Has that been done, AJ? Okay. I can't see that there's going to be a problem because it's always been an Acme. It's different from the Manila situation where you had a lot of activity there before because it was an existing restaurant. But I'd like to see something from the police department as to incidents in and around the Acme site, say over the course of the last 2 years, to see if there's anything there which would raise a red flag for us. I doubt very seriously if there would, but it's just out of an abundance of caution.
And the resolution then, you're agreeing to to close 10 o'clock. Part of the resolution will be you close 10 o'clock during the week and 11:30 on Friday and Saturday. Are you open Sunday?
We are open Sunday, yes.
Till what time on Sunday?
Usually about 10 o'clock also.
10 o'clock. All right, so 10 o'clock except for Friday and Saturday, 11:30?
Would it be okay to have, from a flexibility standpoint, 10:30 during the week and 11:30? I don't anticipate
You know, I
ever
just-
having to go there.
Yeah, I just want to know up front when the hours are, and they're not going to
Oh.
change. Okay.
Honestly, it's probably going to be 10 and 11, but from a
Yeah, I was just going to say,
flexibility
why don't we let them find out what the other businesses that they consider their competition, what those hours are with their liquor licenses.
It's probably
and-
going to be 10 and 11, 10 during the week, 11 on the weekends.
All right, so we'll go 10:30 and 11:30.
Is great.
Okay, fine.
Great with that. I don't anticipate any.
And Hank, what are the other two conditions we wanted? Another condition would be that you would have to come back and get approval if you wanted to move that license anywhere else in Radnor Township.
That's acceptable.
Okay, and what was yours, Hank?
If you sell the business to another entity, that entity or person would have to come back and apply to this board for approval. We've done that with other restaurants before.
Only if it's Radnor. You sell it to somebody in Radnor. If you're going to move the license out of Radnor.
No.
It's the same exact site.
Oh, the exact site. Oh,
Yeah,
exact
they
site, I'm
sell the
sorry.
business right there.
Okay.
And hours of operation, 10:30, is it 10 or 10:30 during the week?
10:30, just from a flexibility
Okay,
standpoint, would be great.
10:30 during the week, 11:30 on
I'm great
weekends,
with that. Absolutely.
and no takeout,
Beer, no takeout beer at all.
no takeout anything.
No,
We
they
have
take out
takeout
pizza.
food.
Yeah,
But,
sure.
okay, no takeout liquor.
Right.
Yeah, no takeout beer or liquor.
Are you going to have outside seating?
Eventually, we'd like to come back to the board and have that conversation, but certainly not at this point, no.
Okay, all right.
Is the outdoor seating only permitted in the overlay?
As it stands now.
You're familiar with the Wayne Business Overlay District?
There's a Zone 1 and a,
Say again, Cheryl?
Yeah, and they're not in the overlay.
That's
I
It
know they're
stops
not.
at Aberdeen, yeah.
that's correct.
Okay,
We're aware of that, yes.
okay.
Anything else? that anybody else needs to talk about on this?
That's it.
Actually, let me just comment. I looked at the intermunicipal transfer code. The way this system, and this is for the residents' point of view, the way the Liquor Control Board determines licensing is that they grant generally one license per 1,000 residents, inhabitants, and in a county. And what I do note is that we have, this will be the 41st license in Radnor, which puts us about 10 ahead of the norm. I support this type of application because it's food and beverage. It's not just a drinking hole. And I think that's a more responsible type of application, so I support it. But, you know, this township, there's a benefit in some ways to having the liquor licenses here, but I think we should be careful in the future. The fact that we're at 41 and what we should be at is 33, based on population, is something we should consider in the future, that we don't want to end up with too many liquor licenses in the township.
Well, just for the record, John, the state legislature in its wisdom decided that the 400 liquor licenses in Delaware County can all come to Radnor, that there's no more municipal liquor license, it's county. So the legislature has permitted every liquor license in the county to be anywhere in the county instead of by municipality, and that they shouldn't have done that, and the people of Radnor Township ought to contact their legislators and have them review that law.
And for historical perspective, when Manellas came in for a liquor license transfer, we objected to it, and there was plenty of good, solid evidence from the police department that there were going to be problems there, and we turned them down. Common Pleas Court affirmed our decision, but on appeal to the Commonwealth Court, they reversed our decision, saying that our belief that the evidence uncovered by the police of prior problems going forward was speculative. And it was just, to me, a huge gap and a loophole in the act. And it really, as Bill says, indicates that the legislature said everybody can come to Radnor if they want to, because you can't project what the problems are going to be because the Commonwealth Court says it's speculation. That seems a little unfair to the municipality, and I agree with John. You know, you don't want to have more than your fair share of liquor licenses, but
Just aside, how's the Manila thing? Have we had major problems here, just off the top of your head? What do you think about that? Yeah, so that's, I mean, I go there all the time. I've never seen any problems, so we did luck out on that one.
yes, we did.
Thank you.
Anything else on this application tonight?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, members
Do
of
we
the
need to
board.
do anything on
Mr.
it?
Solicitor, thank you.
Just, I would just motion to table it to your January 4th meeting.
Okay. Any public comment on this tonight? Okay.
Do you want to step aside and let the gentleman come to the mic? Thanks.
Yes, indeed. I have public comment. My name is Jim Schneller. I'm a resident of the ward across Lancaster Pike, and I've been graced with 5 years now of there not being any establishment. I was graced with moving here to this stretch of Lancaster Pike after Smoky Joe's closed, or right about that time. And we have had what is a really serene, and hopefully will continue, and I beg you to continue, what is a serene and a booze-free stretch of Lancaster Pike. I cannot walk down Wayne Avenue North without, hearing the clatter and jingle. And I hope it wouldn't spread down Lancaster Pike. I don't want to sound like some kind of alarmist. But we all know that there are a couple things that will come along with it. And I don't think the 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock closing time is really an appeasement or a solution for the side effects we're going to get. I shop at the Acme constantly. And if there's one thing I can't emphasize enough, it's could someone, as long as you fellas are concerned and looking at all facets of this, could someone talk to the Acme? There's continual rumors they could feasibly expand. And if this is in the way of negotiations with that landlord who's had a for sale sign up for 2 years, I hate to see the Acme go. Residents, including those of us who do shop in other stores right up till 10 o'clock, when traffic has dropped off, because it's a very nice time to shop all the way up to Wayne Avenue, we'll be subjected to the additional slamming doors to these, even though this is supposedly an upscale establishment, you get all of the accoutrements of a restaurant and of an alcohol serving restaurant. And you're going to have smokers congregating. And if there's one thing I know about bars, if they're in a mall situation with an overhang in a protected place, the smoking, for some reason, maybe it's just in bad weather, but people feel more protected, and it turns into a outgrowth from the bar into the public space. I don't know if we have statutes about that, but that in itself is disturbing to many of the population. I'm talking about quality of life. More than alcohol, it could be something else that makes just certain pervasive things. And the quality of life of everybody from Little Chicago, all of South Wayne, and Len Wayne, of course, all these people in Len Wayne are expected to pay high prices for these condos, and the quality of life isn't quite going to be the same. If I could also mention that they've already upped the hours to 11:30. I don't think there's any guarantee that the place wouldn't feasibly, if it was good for their bottom line, to go by the state liquor code. And I don't think we should be attracting college students. And I think that is a big wake-up for why these folks want to move into this location, and I think we should discourage it. There is not a great pressure on Radnor to build the tax base. This is a great retail location. I think there's people waiting at the door, and I mean non-food people. We've just seen food apparently approved for 550 East, so all of a sudden we've got food in that mall, and that was agreed that would never go in there. And additional restaurants, I hate to say, always equal additional garbage. You've got a bigger dumpster, you've got more odor, and you've got more rodent problems. And it's something we should think about with the Board of Health, because if this mall, along with the mall that's proposed for 107 North Aberdeen, which I believe was at least one restaurant, which is adjacent to this location, we're talking about a total change of character, and that includes as far as the Board of Health is concerned. I hope you'll listen to the rest of my points. Will there be another hearing situation?
Are we going to have another opportunity for public comment?
January 4th.
So thank you. Please, I don't think there's any compromise available. I think that the board should turn it down and keep the West Lancaster shopping area as it is.
Good evening, gentlemen. Ken Taylor. I actually have a question that is not necessarily germane to the liquor license, the intermunicipal liquor license transfer, but rather to the board. Will there be opportunities to investigate the ramifications of the coal-fired pizza baking process in other appearances of this applicant before the board related to building and planning or zoning? Again, it's not about the liquor license transfer, but my understanding is that many municipalities have actually outlawed anything other than the grandfathered use of these kind of coal-fired pizza facilities because of concerns about pollution. And if anyone knows whether the public is going to have an opportunity to or the township would have an opportunity to investigate the potential negative effects of that cooking manner on the local residents, because this, as Jim indicated, this does abut several neighborhoods.
I'm not sure, but I could ask Mr. Baumann. I don't think this is land development, so it doesn't have to come before the board, does it?
No, it does not. They're not doing a
So
building.
it's simply a staff function to determine whether
Correct.
it meets the various codes.
That's correct.
I would certainly defer to Mr. Bauman's expertise in accessing the current literature and publications about this particular baking process. It's my understanding that, I guess in neighborhoods in Chicago where this particular form of pizza is a lot more popular than it is around here, there have been municipalities that have actually done their best to stop further use of that cooking source out of concern for the polluting effects of that form of cooking source. And
Well, what I can do, Ken, I'll talk tomorrow with the plans haven't been submitted yet, but I'll make note to our health officer and our codes inspector that if and when they are submitted, that take a close look at that. And if you'd like to get in touch with me, I'll
if I can
follow up with you.
access the article that I saw about municipalities attempting to grandfather only these, I'll try to get that to
Sure.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I address the code?
Sure. Yeah, come on up.
The coal that we use in our restaurants is an anthracite coal. It's a very high temperature, very clean burning. We have had 21 of these restaurants put up. There's been no issues. Obviously, environment is a huge concern of ours too, and wouldn't be pursuing if we felt it was a challenge to the local environment. So it's a very clean burning, high temperature coal that we use against the anthracite.
So you don't need any scrubbers or anything on the chimney to clean
Haven't
the
had
air?
any in the 21 restaurants that we put up yet. If I could also address the other gentleman?
Sure.
The passion he shows is very much appreciated, and I wish more people would be involved in the town like he is. As far as being a good neighbor, we're going to be nothing but a good neighbor. I come over from a brand that ran Carrabba's Italian Grill, where I was there for 13 years. And what we did was when we came into a community, we would do a lot of the fundraising. Well, one of the opening things we do when we open up a restaurant is donate back to a charity. This is not about coming in and just being a business in your town. This is about coming in and being a neighbor in your town. And I'd be more than happy to give that gentleman my business card with my cell phone number. And if he ever has any concerns or complaints about my restaurant, I would be more than happy to take that call and address it.
You might not want to do that. You get
I'm
too many
telling you,
calls.
it's on the table.
Where is your nearest store now?
I have one being built in Delaware right now, in Wilmington, Delaware, right on
There's
Concord.
not an active in
In the
this area?
Northeast, no. My first one is opening up January 6th.
Okay, where's that going to be?
5611 Concord Pike in Wilmington, Delaware.
Okay. All right, thanks. At this point, then, do we need a motion to table this until January the 4th? Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Second? Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next is the authorization to submit grant application for senior nutrition program at the Wayne Senior Center. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Wilson. I'm currently the president of the Board of Directors at the Wayne Senior Center, and with me this evening are Susan Shapiro, who is our executive director, and Barbara Myers, who is the nutritionist with the area agencies on aging in both Delaware County and Montgomery County. And we're here tonight because the Senior Center is planning to file a grant application for stimulus funds administered by the Pennsylvania Department of Aging in order to improve our nutritional services. I should emphasize that no township money would be required or is asked for in connection with this grant application. The improvements that we're seeking to make would be in three areas. First, we would like to make available for our participants a cold breakfast service. We find that some of our participants are coming to the center without having a nutritional breakfast. Second, we would like to change our luncheon service from paper plates and disposable silverware to more permanent china and permanent silverware. This would both increase the attractiveness of the meal that we serve, the congregate meal that we serve at the Senior Center, and also reduce our waste stream that we generate. And third, we would like to make available to our participants and to other older adults who would like them frozen take-home meals for their dinner service. To do this, we need both new equipment and some modifications to the senior center. The majority of the grant application would deal with new equipment, freezers, dishwasher, and the like. But there are some modifications that would be required. These are primarily plumbing and electrical modifications, and in one case, we would change an existing window to a doorway. Our current agreement with the township, which governs this township-owned building, and the agreement which governs our use of that building requires that we come to get your approval of any modifications, no matter how large or small. The second thing that we need from the board is that in order to qualify for this grant, we need to file with the grant application an assurance that we would have the use of the building for 1 year for each $5,000 of grant money that we are seeking. This would not include the equipment, since that's reusable and can be moved. It would deal only with the cost of the renovations, which we now estimate would be between $10,000 and $15,000. So we would need a letter from the township assuring us that we would continue to have the use of that building for 3 years. The letter that we submitted with the written materials in this connection said 5 years, and since then we've refined the grant application so that the modifications will be under $15,000. And we're here tonight because we have to file our grant application by December 11 with COSA, the county office, and then they review it and it goes to the state. This is a competitive process, so there really is no guarantee that we get this money, but we certainly hope we do. We'd be happy to answer any of your questions that you may have in connection with this.
Well, I would move approval and write the letter. You guys are doing an outstanding job. I'm there every day now. That my 96-year-old mother-in-law goes there every day, and the lunches are great, and she doesn't eat her breakfast all the time, and I'm sure she gets there and gets a donut in the morning, but it would probably be a good thing if she did eat. And we don't want her taking anything home, though, but I'm sure there are plenty of people that would like to take things home. So I've looked at this, and I've been there, and I would assure the commissioners that this is a great application, and we'll give you the support. I mean, we give you the support, give you the extra 3 years that we're going to let you lease the building, and write a letter in support of this project and the fact that we will, say that you're going to be there for another 3 years and hopefully longer than that.
Thank you, Mr.
Second the
Spengler.
motion.
But I just have a couple of questions. You actually addressed one of my concerns by just shortening it to 3 years. Are you obligated to stay in that site for 3 years, or do you just need assurance from us that we wouldn't ask you to move to an alternate site if we had a better?
I believe it's the latter. It's the assurance that you wouldn't throw us out.
But you just think of a hypothetical situation that, say within the next, stick to the 5 years for a second, I just want to understand, but I think you've addressed my concern. That, say there's always been this discussion about a parking garage, and say somebody came to us and said, well, we'll build a parking garage there, and we were able to accommodate finding a better location, whether it's, a second floor or a library, you can think of a whole set of scenarios. This wouldn't impede our ability to do any of that, I would think, based on the way you've described it.
I don't believe it would, no.
Bruce, did you go to the Parks and Rec Board with this? Because typically they have overseen the senior center in the past.
We did not go with the Parks and Rec to the Parks and Rec Board because of the time, the December 11 deadline. We just didn't have time to do that.
Yeah, this is going to be a great expansion. I know whenever we took the fresh produce in there, the folks loved it.
I just want to make sure that we understand where this is going. John Rice, maybe you can help me out, but I believe the lease on this property was dated May 11th, 1992, and the term of the lease is for 1 year and continues on the same terms and conditions for further 1 year periods until terminated by either party. So if we state this letter, is this an addendum to the lease also? Because if we're going to pledge that we're going to renew you for the next 3 years, I think the lease should have an addendum to reflect that, because future boards may not remember that we've given you a letter. So I just want to make sure that we tie the letter into the lease, so there's no confusion. Does that
John,
make
I-
sense?
Yeah, I would, and I don't have the lease in front of me, but if it's a year-to-year lease and they're looking for, a guarantee that they've got 3 years down the road, then whatever, if you're inclined to approve this tonight, just authorize a minor addendum to that existing lease. Make it a 3-year lease, so that it conforms with what you're voting on tonight.
All right, I motion to amend the lease dated May 11th, 1992, to read, the term of the lease is for, as of today, John? What date should we use for the, do we have to make a new lease, or do we amend?
I would just do a minor addendum to the.
Okay, so amend the
to
lease for the,
existing.
to continue on 3-year terms?
I don't know if you want to go that far. I think you want to, if you're going to go down that path, you want it to be just.
Why don't we put an
One.
addendum to the lease, that we are extending the lease for 3 years.
Okay.
They can sign it, and then it reverts back to the year-to-year.
Year-to-year after the 3-year
Okay.
term.
And also,
Okay.
they don't get the grant.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we don't get the grant, we don't need it, so.
Condition on getting the
Bruce,
grant.
Yeah, can we, and
Bruce-
conditioned on the
Hang
grant.
on. Are you suggesting we don't need to do the amendment until you get?
No,
the
no,
grant?
we do need, because we need to file
Okay.
Yeah.
with the application for the grant, the
Yeah.
assurance that we will have the building available to us for
So
3 years.
what you've suggested then is the amendment that John is proposing has an out clause on it that says if in the event that they don't get the grant, it stays.
Exactly, that
Stays
would be
year to
fine.
year after.
John, I'll second that amendment, and we'll vote on that first, and then the whole thing.
Okay.
Before we vote, is there any public comment on this? Okay. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
And then we have the other motion on the floor to approve our support of this application in a letter, and we're going to give you a letter that the lease has been changed, or we'll give you a letter that you have the next 3 years.
All those in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the job you do.
Next is the authorization to attend the Schneller Zoning Hearing Board application. That's an authorization to authorize the solicitor, is that correct?
Yes. This deals with the property at 103 North Wayne Avenue. Mr. Schneller had submitted an appeal to Community Development, which asked several questions, and that was rejected by the zoning officer. He is appealing Mr. Bauman's rejection to the zoning hearing board. The zoning hearing board has taken that as an appeal and has scheduled a hearing. It was scheduled for last month. It was continued till December 17th. And it's my recommendation that I accompany Mr. Bauman to that zoning hearing board to defend his decision, which is really what's been appealed.
I move the approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next is the announcement of 2 vacancies on the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee. What is the process for those who are interested in that, in those vacancies?
You should submit a letter requesting an interview and submit it to Bill Martin.
Okay. All right, that's it for Community Development, Finance and Audit.
The first item on the agenda is the schedules of bills payable. The bill list is number 09-12A. Total amount of payments to be made, both from check and electronically, is $794,436.96. These bills have been approved by the respective department head, verified and processed by the Finance Department, and within the 2009 budgetary limits imposed by the Board of Commissioners. So I have just two short questions before I move that they be introduced, and I don't know if anybody else has any questions. Tom Blumstrom on page 6. I was just curious as to the, you could just give me a description of what the 285, what's identified as 85 sports items are, the birthday parties and the Tea Giving Sports?
85 Sports is a company that runs recreation programs for us. In one case, they were operating and run our birthday party program, and the other is they ran some camps during Thanksgiving week.
So the birthday party, somebody can rent the RAC for their child's birthday party, and these guys manage that? Is that what that is?
That's in a sense, yeah.
Okay. So if anybody has any other questions, otherwise I move that these be approved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Second item on the agenda is an appointment of an auditor for the 2008 fiscal year, and I guess, John Granger, you'll probably do a better job of explaining it. I could probably do it, but you
Thank
probably
you.
have to clarify a few points, so I'll let you do it.
Administration is recommending the board retain the firm Larson Allen to conduct the audit for the 2008. The proposals for $38,500. You may recall that the board recently appointed them to audit 2009 for a fee of $33,000. The firm would do both years concurrently. Both reports would be filed by April 1st, which is the state deadline. I'd recommend that the board retain that firm to do the work.
I'll move the approval.
I think we ought to give a little bit of an explanation
All
as
right.
to why we're doing
As everyone knows, it's been a difficult year, and I think that, given the circumstances surrounding the finances, it's a very good idea to have a firm that has not had any work done auditing the township audit 2008 and 2009.
And I guess the other point is, while the previous auditors have been paid their partial fee, at this point in time, we're not going to pay any.
I'd recommend that we not pay them any further.
Move the approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item H, the appointment of the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee is being deferred because we have not yet completed all of the interviews with people who have applied for the position, so we'll address that at a future date. Item H is Resolution 2009-39, and it's a simple agreement that allows the township to file documents with PennDOT electronically. Is there anything more that needs to be explained other than that, John?
No, the state's moving into electronic commerce, and typically what they will do is name individuals, this report names 2 individuals who would be able to execute the documents electronically. And I would suspect you'll see more of these as the other departments move forward on similar things.
So are we approving this or introducing this, or what do we?
It's a resolution. You would approve it this evening.
Move the approval of the resolution.
Second.
All right, before we vote on it, do you want to have public comment?
Just a really quick, it was on the last item. There wasn't a chance for public comment on the last item. Is that okay?
The Budget
Sure.
Advisory Committee?
Yeah, is that okay?
Sure.
My name is Christina Peroni, and I would like to get some clarification on our last audit firm. Their name again? I forgot who they were.
McGladrey Pullen?
McGladrey Poland. Okay. And that firm was auditing our books during the time when, well, we know based on the Neil Morris report that inappropriate things happened. The monies we've paid them, what are we doing to get that money back? Because clearly they were part of the problem and they were part of our checks and balances and should have stood up strongly saying that they were concerned about the way we were spending our money and the way we were hiding some of the things on our books. So what are we doing about that?
I'm going to defer to John Rice on that. John, do you want to comment on that?
What the board has discussed and what we're going to discuss in the future, once we do, we release the forensic audit tonight, it's on the agenda later on. There's a lot of things on the township's plate. What we're going to do about the prior auditors is something we're going to discuss next. But there's no action to be taken on that at this point. I think the board understands your concern. We all have concerns about what went on over the course of a number of years, And there's only so many paths we can follow, but that is something that has been discussed with the board, with my office, and it's something that we're going to have some discussions again shortly about. So there's nothing specific, Christina, to answer your question. There's a lot of possibilities, but it's something that as we go through this process of sorting out what has happened over the last few years, that's something that there's got to be another discussion about. But it's not going to be tonight, but it's going to be between now and the end of the year.
Now and the end of the year. So the next meeting, because there's only one meeting left before the end of the year.
Well, if we're talking about, you want to know what are we doing, so the implication is that you would like some kind of a claim filed, and that's litigation. It's not going to be something that's going to be discussed at a public meeting here over the next, between now and the end of the year, but I've got to look at information. I've got to have a discussion with the commissioners as to there's some other things on the agenda that involve township claims. This is another township claim.
I guess what I'm just asking for is if this board could, during this time that we're spending another is that what I heard correctly, $38,000 to re-audit 2008? Simultaneously, if we're authorizing spending this money, let's simultaneously go and claw back the money from McGladrey for them doing an inappropriate job. I understand there's a lot on our plate, and I do understand that, but it's so easy to get all those things lost, and to me, it's checks and balances. We're spending $38,000 because they did a bad job. Let's go after the money we paid them. So it would make me feel better if we just said, yes, I authorize going after McGladrey.
It's not that simple. And
I'm sure it's not.
You're talking about a potential litigation
Okay.
involving a professional organization, and Mr. Rice, the solicitor, just gave you as much information as he can publicly about that investigation and that process. And all I can say is we're looking into all of our options, and that's one of them.
Okay.
And it's not falling through the cracks.
This motion's been moved and seconded, the resolution.
Okay, the motion has been moved and seconded regarding the resolution. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Library has nothing to report.
Personnel Administration.
Thanks, Tom. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight. The first item is the release of the forensic audit. Earlier this year, the Board of Commissioners voted for and approved to have Margolis and Company perform a forensic audit. I'm going to defer to John Rice. John Rice is going to introduce this topic and describe the audit.
Follow up the last comments. This is another item that involves substantial litigation going forward, and assuming the board votes to release the audit, will involve the township and the township staff in trying to claw back, as I heard just described, some of the money from the former township manager. But what I have prepared to read tonight is a press release which summarizes what's in the forensic audit. The board votes to approve the forensic audit tonight. That will be available online tomorrow for anyone that wants to download that. But essentially, in terms of background and getting to the point where we are tonight with this audit, in March, the board began a process under the Home Rule Charter to terminate its manager based on specific violations of the charter and the township's code of ethics. That process, which began in March, then culminated in an adoption of a resolution dismissing the manager on April 13th, 2009. Subsequent to that, then, the board authorized my office to engage Markham Accountants and Advisors, formerly Margolis, to conduct a forensic audit, which they began after that. That report was completed on November 13th, 2009. And that report was then provided to county, state, and federal law enforcement agencies who have been pursuing their own investigations into some of the things that are in the Markham report. In reviewing the report, it's the board's opinion, and I think anyone that reads the report and have read the Neil Morris report, it's apparent that the township manager engaged in a pattern of secrecy, self-dealing, and fiscal mismanagement. The Markham report details what occurred over essentially the 8 or 9 years that the prior manager was in office. And I just want to summarize the monies that are documented in the report and I'm not going to go into specifics about any of this tonight, but essentially, I think we all know about the lump sum bonuses that were paid to, that he paid to himself, in effect, of $151,000. Markham also detailed that there was cash in lieu of time off of about $11,000. There was some relocation expenditures and excess reimbursement of taxes, which totaled combined about $44,000. There's a list of undocumented and personal use of the township credit card of about $165,000. Now that includes undocumented, and for anyone that wants to read the report, the standard that was used by Markham was what the IRS would require if you had a business expense. The fact that it's undocumented doesn't mean it wasn't a valid use, but that is spelled out in the report. There was some petty cash usage, which again there was no documentation for, of about $1,300. There was unsupported reimbursements of travel expenses of about $1,540, and there were some other unsupported reimbursements for civil and charitable activities of about $1,500. The total amount that the forensic audit identified, which in the forensic auditor's opinion was questionable, was about $377,000. The board did direct me to provide the report to law enforcement. That has happened. The law enforcement agencies have advised me that they have no objection at this point releasing this report to the public. Subsequent to the beginning of the forensic audit by Markham, the Board of Commissioners also learned that the former township manager had directed the township's IT department to record incoming telephone calls to the township building's receptionist station. This started in October of '07 and continued, which is around the time this building opened, and then continued until about 2 or 3 months ago when it was discovered by the board and the staff. The calls were recorded out at the receptionist front desk, and once those calls were transferred to other township employees, the recording stopped. No other conversations were recorded, but out of an abundance of caution, and on my advice, it was the board's view that that could be construed as a technical violation of state criminal statutes. So we've turned that also over to county and state and federal law enforcement agencies. So that these matters are in the hands of the law enforcement agencies at this point. Based on the information that's in the Markham report and those ongoing investigations, I've advised the board that they should not answer questions about what's in the report. The report is certainly fair game for public comment, but I don't think it's appropriate to engage in a pattern of detailed discussion. It's something that's not appropriate. We are waiting for law enforcement agencies to complete their activities, and then we'll see where we go from there. But that is a separate criminal investigation that's ongoing with those agencies. At this point, we have turned over, including this report, everything that the township has on the activities that are outlined in the Markham report. So with that, it's my recommendation, and again, this will be, the board authorizes a release. It'll be available online. And it's my recommendation that the board authorize a release by motion and vote.
I move the authorization of the release.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item?
Next up on Personnel Administration, we have
Pardon me?
offers.
Sure.
Just on these, just if I can, before the board votes on these items, there should be an opportunity for public comment. Motion second, and then public comment before.
You got it.
Before there's a vote.
Okay, well, this is going to be an easy one. My name is Andrea Perrone. My sister's Christina Perrone. And I'm actually here not because this is a happy day. I think it's very sad to be part of somebody's personal choices that were obviously not good. I'm here actually to as a, I guess, a taxpayer and a neighbor, to thank all the people that come to these meetings. I have many times come home from a long day of work and said, how does my sister keep doing it? I tell her, just stop going to the meetings. I look at the people in the room and I say, you guys are all busy. How are you so involved? And, you know, I really think it's a credit to our neighbors. I think it's a credit to the people that come here to have uncovered this. As a citizen, I have sometimes been very disappointed with the response from many of you for the actions of these citizens who are trying to do what is right, not trying to bring down a person, but trying to bring justice. And I think it's very clear with this report that this individual, who was one of your peers, was not making good choices. So I'm here really to thank all of the people who have come year after year, specifically my sister. I'm very proud of you and the Sherrys and Chip Layfield, all the other people who come so frequently. And I'm just here to thank them for their service, and I encourage you to do the same.
Ken Taylor. I had a question. I don't know if the Markham report addressed this or not. It was my recollection that at the time of the hearing that preceded the board's motion for the dismissal of the prior township manager, there was substantial evidence and discussion about the legal viability of certain documents created by the township manager that led to at least his alleged justification to not only pay himself bonuses, but also other employees bonuses. Was there anything in the Markham report or that we're going to see when this goes online that addresses the issue of whether there is an equal legal justification to request the bonuses paid to the township employees pursuant to those created authorization documents that I think were referred to as being put in a lockbox rather than shown to the board or shown to anybody else, that generated the bonus payments to the other employees. Was there anything in the Markham report that indicated what this board may have in the way of its ability to recover those costs as well, or the propriety of those bonus payments as well?
From who? Recovery from who? What are you
From
suggesting?
the employees other than Mr. Bayshore, who, in other words, there was a question about the process whereby the very same document that he used to pay himself bonuses, there were the very same questions about the bona fides of the document that he used to generate the bonus payments to employees other than himself. And I was wondering if the Markham report gives either law enforcement or this board any indication that the township has the ability to pursue those payments being returned as well?
The Markham report doesn't address that. Neil Morris addressed that, I think, in his report to some extent. But I would encourage you to read the report, once it's available. But the Markham report is not rendering legal opinions as to the viability or feasibility of pursuing the Markham report. They were retained to look at the township manager's transactions and justifications for expenditures, in effect. That was the focus of the Markham report. But whether or not there's claims, that's, as an attorney, you can come to your own opinion or as to that. But Markham didn't address that. Neil Morris, I think, addressed that particular topic. You're talking about the policies that Mr. Bayshore put into effect when he first became township manager. That I think is discussed in more in the Morris report and not really at all because it wasn't the focus. But legal justifications and theories, you're on your own on that. But we are going to talk about some of that on the next item on the agenda.
I figured that's where it might come up. Thank you.
Susan Stern, 813 Lawrence Lane. I just wondered if the forensic audit either does include or is there a plan to do an audit of the expenses related to this very large, very expensive building. In the years I've lived here, I think this is the single biggest project that the township manager oversaw, and it's not a stretch of my imagination to think that perhaps certain improprieties were extended to this specific project. And I'm wondering if the audit itself includes a review of that, or if there's an intention on this board to review that, to ask the new auditor to review the work associated with all of the expenses that were approved or supposedly approved and ultimately spent on this building.
Well, the Markham report, and again, they were not retained to look at this particular construction project and what that would all entail. So no, it doesn't address that. The new auditor that was discussed earlier in 2008 is going to do the normal annual township audit. In terms of this building, both myself and Mr. Granger have been looking at documentation over the course of the construction, and we're going to continue to look at that. But that's a totally separate project that we have been looking at for the past 6 or 7 or 8 months.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Is there any other public comment on that particular agenda item?
My name again is Christina Peroni. I'm here to speak specifically to the issue of the forensic report. And I want to go back to what Ms. Stern just said, which I think was very powerful and important. But I will go and start with my first request for information that was July 28th, 2006, where I requested 2005 and 2006 credit card statements for everybody in the township who had credit cards. So, Mr. Bayshore was a clever man, but he wasn't that clever. He sent me my first response, which normally you're supposed to get a response within 30 days, well, really a week, or if not, then 30 days. Well, I got my first response to credit cards dated September 20th, 2006, where Mr. Bayshore said, or Ms. Ostrander, who was the Freedom of Information Act representative, said that basically the statements were enclosed for 2005 and 2006 credit cards. So that's the trick they played. They said they did it. Okay, so then I would get documents and documents and documents. And, you know, being a business person or just anybody who's ever filled out an expense report, and I would guess that most people on this board have filled out an expense report, just papers and papers and papers, and all this stuff blacked out, Board of Commissioners meeting, different things just blacked out, but no expense reports. I was always asking for, well, show me the backup of why you're going to lunch, why are you going to dinner, why are you going to lunch, why are you going to dinner? And then it literally, I had somebody who was working for me who I asked them to go through these documents to help me sort through what was Mr. Bayshore's credit card, what were other people's credit cards, and very quickly, I mean, again, it didn't take, you know, genius detective work to see that Mr. Bayshore's credit card was the highest credit limit, you know, so it didn't take a huge detective to realize which one was his. I'm sorry, I have to back up for 1 second. The first time I asked for credit card statements, Mr. Blake, the prior president or chairman of the Radnor Republican Party, said, you're not allowed to have credit card statements because they're bank documents. Okay, so again, doesn't that seem weird to us? Which is why we have to separate politics and always make sure we have independent people. I'm delighted you're hiring an independent firm. Okay, so then I said, well, that's ridiculous that I'm not allowed to get them because they're bank documents. And then finally I had to come up in public, and then I started getting these documents. And then I realized we were missing the 10,000 card limit ones. So then I had to sort through which ones I got, which ones I didn't get. And then I would go and make further requests to actually, I'd go through the process and I'd write notes to Mr. Bayshore. And, you know, I've got copies of notes after notes after notes to Mr. Bayshore, and he would always say things like, you know, I'm really, really busy, but I'll get back to you. And so then I wrote another note to them saying, you know, one of the outcomes of the Haverford grand jury is that all expense reports submitted should require completion of a written expense report detailing the nature of the expense as well as providing receipts, and should comply with applicable township code and statutes. That was what Corbett said from this Haverford grand jury. That was April 2007 that I sent that note out. Okay, but still, you know, and I would go to township meetings. I bring my documents. If you could just take a look, these are just some of my documents just regarding credit cards. And so I would continue to just make further requests and just keep getting denied. I went to a township meeting December 11th, 2006. And it only says in the minutes, Christina Peroni asked questions about health insurance. And she said that she requested information under Right to Know Act during October 24th, 2006. But I requested it in July, been denied, given half of it, pieces of it, regarding township vehicles, and that request hadn't been completed. In addition, some credit card information is being withheld. And Mr. Bayshore informed Ms. Peroni that the staff was tied up with police and rate negotiation and other administrative issues these past few months. Well, you know what? It wasn't his option to be tied up. It was the law that was supposed to be disclosed. That was December of 2006. I recently saw that meeting again. And the response that I got was pretty staggering. It's not in the minutes, but it's pretty staggering. What Commissioner Higgins said to Mr. Bayshore is it possible that the zero balances were because, it was possible she didn't get these credit cards because they were zero balances. Now, as we all know, you know, a zero balance, that's as important a document as a document with $15,000 worth of payments. And Mr. Bayshore traditionally had $15,000 worth of payments on his credit card, but then he would miss like 4 months in a row and never send them to me. So I wrote notes. I have a note here to Ms. Ostrander from November 14th, 2006. Saying basically that I requested this information. July 2006 through October 2006 were missing, and also there was also February, May, June and July and September of 2005 were missing. And so, you know, these are missing intermittent months. Again, doesn't take a lot of detective work to figure out that's pretty odd. But Mr. Bayshore said not only was he busy, but then he said, well, the reason why she didn't get them is they're zeros, and it's our policy to throw them in the trash. So I said, just get them from your bank and show them to me. And he never did. And so I had this email from Ms. Ostrander dated November 14th, 2006. It says, hey, Christina, just tried to get a hold of you via phone, and you must have been on the other line, blah, blah, blah. I just spoke with Dave, and he said we don't even keep those statements. I will, however, because they're zeros, I will, however, be able to provide you with the May 15, 2005 statement that you couldn't read. In addition, I've got some other blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the point is that I was being stonewalled, and you all knew it who were on the board. Mr. Nagel wasn't on the board. Mr. Avada was on the board. Mr. Spengler, you were beating me up like there's no tomorrow at that meeting. Mr. Masterson, you sat silent. You weren't there. Mr. Mahoney, you blocked me like there's no tomorrow. And so $377,000 was stolen. It sits on the people who were on the board at the time, their shoulders. And the reason I bring it up is not to throw it in their face, but because of what Sue just said, which is we need to investigate the township building. I had the exact same grouping of documents where he lied about millions of dollars on this township building. I asked for AIA forms, and he said they don't exist. AIA forms are basically what architects use to keep track of budgets. He said they didn't exist. Then later, I found out from Ms. Cuthbertson, because I went to her and said, come on, you've got to have them. And then she would try and give me some documents. Basically, there were millions of dollars missing. The fact that Mr. Rice just said, oh, we're looking at it, is just so inadequate, and it should be inadequate for you. And the four of you who were on the board, stand up and say this is not okay. Investigate this millions of dollars. So I would ask you, please, put forth a motion to investigate this building. The taxpayers deserve it. Don't act like it's a surprise. You know what's going on. You know he did bad. And you watched him do it, or you blocked him, or you helped him. So investigate this township building. I would ask you to put forth a motion to investigate the charges in this township building and where those missing millions of dollars have gone. Would you agree to do that, Mr. Masterson?
Possibly. I'm waiting to hear from Mr. Rice. He has advised us that he is looking into that issue. The problem is we've had to go in so many directions and spend so much money at this point to try to figure out what was done that we're trying to deal with each issue as it comes. We're at the point now where we got the forensic audit released. We've been trying to hire a new manager. At the same time, Mr. Rice has been looking into the building. So as far as I'm concerned, it's certainly an issue that we need to look into. And if Mr. Rice concludes that we need to hire an outside auditor or an outside organization, then I think we should do that. But I'm waiting to hear from him as to what his recommendation is.
One of the things that has to happen, Christina, is in order to go down that path, this board needs to know what is it going to cost. You know, what is a number that somebody that would do that, what you're demanding tonight, is it going to cost $5,000 or $50,000? And then if it's $50,000, and we find something that the manager, whoever, is responsible for, are we going to be able to collect that? So it's easy to stand up here and be outraged, and I think we're all outraged. I'm certainly outraged. I mean, I would love them to give me a blank check to go investigate this, but I don't think that's the proper thing to do, given what the finances are of this township. So I've got to have, you know, and we've been looking at it. You've sent me information. I've looked through some of that information. There's got to be some idea of what the costs are going to be. You just can't responsibly say, let's investigate everything and spend $100,000, and at the end of the day, collect $5,000. I mean, that's the difficult decision, and I think that's what Mr. Masterson's referring to. We can investigate everything in the world. There's some criminal issues that are going on, as I outlined earlier, but we're doing it. I've been here since April, so we're doing this step by step by step, along with everything else that happens in the township on a day-to-day basis. It comes up. So I'm going to make a recommendation to this board at some point, and then they're going to have to make a decision at that time. But in the meantime, we're looking at minutes, we're going through what happened with this building, and but there's got to be, there's some bounds as to what we would love to investigate everything, but there's got to be some bounds as to where that ends at some point.
I appreciate what you're saying. My recollection, the Margolis report was $15,000 or something like that, 20,000?
15.
15,000. Okay, so the Margolis report was 15,000, and we uncovered, I don't know, I didn't tally, I don't know, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 worth of I didn't really tally it, but I don't know how many.
377.
377 just on credit cards, but all the other stuff.
No, that's total. That's total.
Oh, that was total?
Right.
Okay, so
Total.
$377,000 worth of inappropriate spending, and you spent $15,000. If we can get insurance to get that money back, that seems like a good use of money. That return on investment is real good right there. So go authorize another $25,000 and investigate, or authorize the Neil Morris report that resulted in criminal or documentation of criminal activity was $120,000 or something. Is that right? Something. So let's put forth a motion to spend $50,000. The township building was millions and millions of dollars. Nothing compared to the credit cards. Millions. Have the courage to please lead. Mr. Masterson, you have had a lot of courage. I got to give you credit. You really stood up and said, I'm not putting up with the township manager, and you really had a lot of nerve. You really did, and you had courage. And I'm saying, I know you've got one meeting left. Why don't you make this a great way to end your tenure and just say that you were the one who led the force. You led the force and did not authorize $50,000. I have documentation of about $6 million that's undocumented. Me personally. I can't believe Mr. Rice. We all know this is political. Let's not push too much on the board, blah, blah, blah. Be the Boy Scout. Be the leader. Go and show everybody you are the man that can lead this board to say, I will spend $50,000 to find millions.
Mr. Brown, I'm going to make the decisions that I think are appropriate based on the facts that are in front of me. Mr. Rice already told you that he has looked into this process. I'm not going to make any promises. I'm trying to deal with each issue on its merits at the time. Now, my understanding is that you already talked to law enforcement about the building. Is that not correct?
I didn't give law enforcement all of my documents on the building. They were asking about credit cards and the audit. I didn't give them that. They didn't ask me for that information. That was given to Mr. Rice. So Mr. Rice is the holder of the information, and he knows that it's unauthorized and undocumented. He knows there's a span. This much was authorized, $11.6 million. I have a document from Amy Cuthbertson that we were at 17 or 18 million or some number like that, 17 million. So we know whatever it is. If it's $5, it's over the amount. I mean, there was at least a 40% spread. That's enough money. Mr. Rice, I can't understand. And if you can't be independent, then we need a solicitor who can speak for the people of this township.
Personally attacking me is not going to get it done, Christine.
I'm not attacking you. I'm saying stand up for the people in the township and say millions of dollars was misappropriated.
You don't know what I'm doing. You don't know what information I have. And, this is not the time to discuss going down that path. It's reckless, in my opinion, to have a $50,000 motion made, not knowing where you're going to go with that. That's reckless.
We're investigating fraud.
Christine, let me just interject. I think this board did ask John Rice to look into this issue. And he and John Granger have been reviewing documents. I'm certainly going to take this on in the new year. Again, we're dealing with a lot of issues right now. This is an important issue for me. And I'm pretty certain that once we see the probable cause, once we see that, in fact, something doesn't look right, we're going to do what we need to do. But we're not going to make that decision tonight. I don't think it's a good one to make tonight.
Wow. If we don't learn from the past, we will just repeat it in the future. And I can't understand that there aren't two people willing to put forth a motion to say it's time to investigate the millions of dollars in the township building.
Well, I'm willing to put forth the motion, but I'm not so sure I have a second.
Well, then let's try it. Let's get the vote in the public.
Let me just clarify. I'm not willing to motion to hire an outside firm to do that at this point because the costs are not understood.
But why couldn't you say $50,000 and we're going to investigate? You know, you've got $15,000. You got all this back from $15,000.
Well, I'm willing to motion to open an investigation into the issue of the cost of the township building.
Okay, great.
That is my motion. But if I don't have a second,
okay,
then it goes nowhere.
Okay.
But I really believe that as John Rice starts to give us more guidance on this issue, most likely in the new year, that the board as a whole will understand where we need to go.
I'm happy to second that motion, but the fact of the matter is, I think the investigation has already begun.
Not a private independent investigation has not been done. We don't have a separate firm that is out there investigating this township. And you did not vote to spend this township money. You did not vote to do that because you knew it was wrong.
I thought it was too much money.
Right.
Okay.
It was too much money at 11.6 million.
Christina, it's just a matter, the investigation's not that complicated. It's a matter of reviewing all the minutes from all the public votes on the building and matching them up to the actual expenditures.
Right.
And I think John Rice is moving in that direction. We're going to have to give him some time.
But why are we making Mr. Rice do it? I want a firm that has nothing to do with the township doing
it. John Rice's and his firm are completely independent, and that's why we hired him this year.
They're not. He's your solicitor who's trying to stay on as the solicitor for the township. He's not independent. Independent means Margolis. Independent means a group that has nothing to do with trying to make money off of the township. Mr. Rice, all due respect, he is making money out of being the solicitor, which is totally fine and fair and appropriate, but he shouldn't also be investigating. We need independence. That's what we should have learned. So there's a motion and a second. Thank you, Mr. Hrvata. I mean, I appreciate and would hope that everybody else has the courage to go and vote to go in and put forth an investigation. I would really hope. Mr. Spingler, it would be really...
I have a solicitor there that's looking into it, is going to make a recommendation when we're going to do an investigation on his recommendation, and that's going to happen probably in the new year.
Right. And all these credit card statements that we're missing, you guys accepted that we got awards, and it was okay. Come on, let's learn. There's a motion and a second. I would hope that the rest of you vote to actually investigate the millions of dollars missing from this township building.
They motioned and seconded not what you're proposing.
No, a motion to go and investigate and then hopefully then there would be to hire a firm to do it.
Okay.
Right?
Motioning to investigate.
Right, which is good.
Which is what's going on.
We're already doing.
No, that is a firm that is part of the problem. Remember, where we always got in trouble is everyone was connected. We need to separate ourselves. That's
and the motion is to spend $50,000 to investigate.
From a separate independent firm.
I think what this board will do is that we will, at some point, we will invite in firms to look at this. They'll give us quotations, and then we'll pick a firm that we believe is the best firm with the best value,
Fabulous.
lowest cost, best value firm, like we did with the forensic audit.
Fabulous.
And we will, in fact, then vote on that in public. But we can't do that in public because we haven't gotten any quotes. So we don't even know who would be best suited. The forensic auditors, their realm was accounting. But what you're talking about is really a blend of accounting and law. So we have to look at that.
Okay. Well, then, if we could just ask to say that to motion maybe Mr. Rice to put forth a request for a proposal for professional, what's that called, a professional services. Thank you. For a professional service to investigate the township building. I guess that's what I'm asking for.
I'll
so
motion to instruct John Rice to gather requests for proposal on firms to investigate the cost of the township building.
Second.
Thank you.
Any discussion?
I think what you're technically asking to do is audit the cost as opposed to
No, I'd like us to start looking at firms.
You're basically looking to have somebody give John Rice a proposal based on an RFP.
Right.
Right? Isn't that what it is?
That's right.
I think the scope of what you're talking about is, to some extent, It's looking at the meeting minutes, it's looking at the costs, it's looking at the bills list, but it's also probably talking to the vendors, the subs, the contractors, and whoever else was on the job. It's not just looking at paperwork, Christina. It's not just looking at minutes. There's a little bit more to it. You know, I've looked at meeting minutes. I've looked at the paperwork. I don't have everything that normally I would see in a project of this size. So it's going a little bit beyond that. But that would be, if the board's of a mind to authorize me to do that, then with those parameters, I think that's what you're talking about.
Well, if we get an RFP out and we get proposals in, at least we know what the parameters are in terms of expense,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah, whether John Rice does the service for us or we do it outsourced, we still need to know the amount of hours that it would take and what the scope of that investigation will be. And again, we have to do this in a methodical way. We can't just
agree.
vote on it tonight. We don't even know
I
what
agree,
we're voting on.
but asking Mr. Rice to put forth a request for a proposal for professional services, I think, is a fabulous, great, wonderful start, because at least then we're moving forward.
You need any more information than that, Mr. Rice?
No, I mean, I understand what has to be done. It's a little more detailed, I think, than I mean,
Yeah, I didn't mean to oversimplify the process, but I think
Well,
in general terms.
right.
I didn't even mean in terms of the investigation. I meant in terms of just finding probable cause and determining whether we need to do an investigation. You know, what is there right now? If it turns out that we have all the minutes presently that show that in fact everything was voted on, well, we're not going to hire a firm to do an investigation. But I don't, I think what you're trying to say is that we won't find that. And I believe, John Rice is looking into those matters
Well, it's
now.
more than the minutes of what was voted on, too. It comes down to vendors that were paid, who wasn't paid, is there any ghost vendors out there? I have no idea, but it was a lot of money that was spent. and we should,
It's change orders.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
there's
basically
going to be a
what-
long trail
Right.
of checks that were written to different vendors for different services provided to build this building. And I think it is reasonable to request that we get bids to see what it would cost to have somebody investigate that. And I think that's all we're asking for.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're discussing, and the board authorized, I'll put, outline together, an RFP together, and seek some proposals like we did
John,
with Markham.
assuming we go forward with this, do you think you'd be in a position to, around the time the RFPs came in, to give us advice on the likelihood of success on collecting? Because while Christina made the assumption that we're getting all the money back in the forensics report, which is like what you said, you may not have meant what you said, but that's what you said. We don't know that.
Well,
So
Kevin,
it-
collection's not the issue. If there
Well,
was some
well,
wrong, if
but-
we
no,
were,
it-
if there's
it
wrong,
is
this,
the
we want to
issue-
know.
It is the issue to a certain degree, because there's information that's nice to know, and there's information that's actionable. And if we find out that it's going to cost us $50,000 to do this, just hypothetically, and we have the prospect of getting $500,000 back, that's one thing. But if at the end of the day we find out that the insurance won't cover, it, Mr. Bayshore has no money left to pass back, then we're spending $50,000 to make us feel good that we went back and we understood what happened, which may be okay. But at the same point in time, we may say, I wish I would know it, but I don't really want to spend $50,000 to go out to do something that I have no prospect of collecting. I know I once had to sue a contractor, and I gave up in the middle of the process because he had no money. So why spend more money on lawyers to make the lawyers rich? It would have made me feel good, but eventually I got to the realization that I'm just wasting my money. And I agree with the concept, but we got to, be practical about it at the same point in time.
Yeah, Kevin, I think that, based on this report here, that if John's looking at it, and his recommendation, if he finds just an inkling of anything, then I think we should know for future understanding of how
Thank
these
you.
things work, and if anything happened there, then we should
I
know
don't
whether we
disagree,
can.
but I think we just need to
whether we
understand
cover-
going
Well, that's
in
what
with
the
our
RFP
eyes
will
wide
tell
open.
you, Kevin, is
Yeah.
what's the cost? Someone comes back and says it's going to be $500,000 to investigate the whole thing, then you might want to make a decision accordingly. But until we know what the costs are, I think it's prudent and wise to look into what they would
It
do.
doesn't cost us anything to go get the proposal.
That's right.
And just stepping back for a second, with all due respect to you, Ms. Cronin, John Rice has been, in my estimation, an excellent independent solicitor. He came to us from Bucks County. He didn't know anybody here. And the reason we went outside of the county was for that very reason. And really, he's done a tremendous job, and we trust him implicitly, and believe me, he's well worth the money we're spending on him.
And just to, I agree with that. I mean, having dealt with this individual over the last few months, I mean, it's a sea change from what we had before.
Well, from Mr. Blake, yeah, absolutely. And I'm delighted that you're happy with Mr. Rice, and I'm not impugning his reputation whatsoever. I'm just saying we should have independence. There should be complete separation, and that's how we protect the taxpayers, by completely separating the tasks. So I look
Okay.
forward to the vote and to hear if there's a vote to actually put forth
I move to direct John Rice to put together an RFP to look into the approvals and expenditures on the township building.
I'll second it again. I thought we already did this once.
We did.
It's been seconded.
Well, I just didn't know if it was.
We'll take public comment.
Another minor detail, but maybe important. Could anything be in the resolution, or could you at least give us word that the township, where applicable, could request any law enforcement agency to act? At some point, that would certainly stop any redundancy. At any given point,
I think, are you asking, just so you know, up until this point, at any moment that the special counsel or our counsel determined that there was any potential for unlawful conduct, it was immediately referred to law enforcement. So in the process of the audit of the township building, say, if anything's discovered, it's going to have to be, we take an oath of office that says that we have to report any crimes immediately, as soon as they become known to us.
yes, but don't you also have a leeway to ask for assistance with investigations, so the state might bear some of the cost?
We actually had to bear the cost of the forensic audit because the county could not do that work. So we have to pay for a lot of the services that we need.
Well, thank you. Thank you for laying out the funds, and thank you for tonight's idea from Christine and the vote. I hope it'll be favorable.
Susan Stern, I had no idea the can of worms when I asked the question I asked. It just made sense to me this was the biggest project, that it was the one that's most ripe for potential wrongdoing. I fully support and hope that you pass the motion that you're about to take a vote. And I want to acknowledge Mr. Havada. It's rare that he and I agree, but I really do acknowledge and appreciate your position on the expenditures on this building, and wanting to get to the bottom of that. I want you to know that. I have a suggestion that making a decision from a place of information is good, which is the reason I support the RFP. And we don't know how much it's going to cost. As an alternative for something to consider, Congress is real famous for this, commissions all over the place. You may actually find that you could solicit a small group of volunteers from the township who you would interview and appoint as a small commission to go through the information. It's all ultimately public documents. I mean, the building was publicly, approved in a public meeting. All of the expenditures were publicly approved. Any legal expenditures, let me put it this way, were voted upon at a public meeting. And so theoretically, anything that's to be found and sifted through is of a public nature. So it's not an unreasonable thought that there could be a group of volunteer citizens who would be willing to take on the project, with a given scope to look through this stuff. Because I do understand what you're saying. This isn't quite forensic auditing. This is literally going to come down to, okay, this change order matches up to this, and it was that expenditure, and did we vote on it? And I mean, it's a lot of time, and it's going to be very expensive for us to have Mr. Rice even do this as our independent solicitor. It will, and again, I support doing the RFP and getting a sense of that cost, but as an alternative to spending the money, you could consider soliciting a group of citizens, Radnor residents, who would be willing to donate their time. Because I think Christine is right. I think there's probably a lot of money that we overspent here. So that's my thought. Thank you.
Well, just to follow up on that suggestion, does anybody want to do that instead?
I think, though, if you play out what we were advised on the forensic audit, if it was to progress to some further steps, somebody would have to be prepared to be an expert witness and all that.
Testify.
Right, and
You're not gonna be able to get
I
a-
think it's premature
Yeah.
to do that. I think, based on the suggestion, if we come to the conclusion it's not worth spending real money to do the audit or the investigation, that might be an alternative course, but I think it's something we don't necessarily have to decide tonight. I think the RFP makes sense, take a look at it, figure out where we want to go, and if we don't go down that path, then that's a perfectly reasonable path to go down. But it's all tied into prospects for recovery and all sorts of things, in my opinion, and having to potentially testify and all that kind of stuff.
Now, I'll comment that I think we need to hire a professional to do the audit. However, input from the community is always helpful, because if they can, if anyone in the community is interested in looking at these documents and cataloging or finding irregularities, they can certainly forward that information to the board or to the solicitor. You know, I was doing quite a lot of that in last year, looking over documents and looking over records, and it saves us money in the end because we're not paying an attorney or a high cost for an outside firm to do that searching. So there's certainly no reason to exclude a community group from doing that or a member of the community from doing that. But I don't think in terms of prosecution or in terms of referring it or becoming an expert witness, I don't think that a community group would be able to carry the weight that we need in an official proceeding.
Go ahead.
Harriet Waldron, Boxwood
Sure.
Road. Just in response to what was just said by Ms. Stern, I agree with Enrique probably a lot of the time, probably not so much Ms. Stern, but in this case, I agree with her. And I agree with her for several reasons, but one is, I don't think you all realize how much the public trust has been damaged for all of you. Anybody who looks back at those videotapes and saw people sit and not say anything when Christina was, raising the red flag about Mr. Bayshore, I mean, it's the trust is just not there from the public in Radnor, and I think if there's one reason to consider the commission of public people to come together and to start to take a look at this, it's really so that you all could get the trust back, because it's definitely been hampered, and I was sitting there thinking the exact same thing. It is time to pull the public in. You owe us an explanation. Our taxes are being raised. We see $400,000 practically dollars that have gone down the drain, and we want to know why, and we want to know why it was allowed to occur, and we want to make sure it doesn't happen again. So that's my 2 cents about, I agree with the commission idea.
Have we have a motion on the floor?
Yeah, Mr. Fisher's motion has been seconded regarding the request for proposal. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, back to the agenda. The second item on the agenda
Well,
for
did we
me.
vote on the release of the forensic audit?
I-
It was just,
No, we,
Oh.
well, I thought we did.
no, we didn't. We took questions first, didn't we?
No.
We actually voted on it before the
We did
question.
once, we went
Okay.
back. We should vote one more time.
I'll move the approval of release of the forensic audit.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Under the Home Rule Charter, the treasurer of the township has the ability to surcharge any official in the township, and I would like to authorize to provide legal counsel to the treasurer to effect the surcharge against David Bayshore. And I would like to select the firm, or Neil Morris, to be this special counsel to assist the treasurer on the surcharge action.
At a cost not to exceed $10,000 at this time.
Cost not to exceed $10,000, and to effect this filing within 30 days.
Second?
Is 30 days realistic, John?
Well,
I have no issue with so far, other than that.
Yeah, I think it's realistic to say that, 30 days is fine, but I would expect that it'll be done within the next 10 days.
Right.
Any public comment on this?
I second it.
Okay.
Chip Layfield, Wayne. What's the scope? What are you looking at for a surcharge?
Well, there's two things, basically. One is, and the surcharge, the way that the charter reads, is sort of like a confession of judgment, just a document that sets forth sufficient information in it. So the forensic audit would be an attachment, along with the additional employee bonuses, which the manager authorized, which this board did not authorize. So that sum of money, in effect, is about $825,000. So that again is subject to Mr. Osborne, who, has the authority to effectuate the surcharge with advice of legal counsel. But that, my opinion, is what the surcharge amount would be.
I guess my understanding is the treasurer doesn't need your support to do a surcharge. He can do that on his own. What you're doing is authorizing legal counsel?
Correct.
Great. Sounds good. Thank you.
Do I understand that the surcharge directed to Mr. Bayshore would be relative to his own bonuses and also the other bonuses that he agreed?
Correct.
Does the Home Rule Charter prevent this board from seeking disgorgement of those bonuses from the employees themselves because they're not considered to be township officials?
I don't know whether the Home Rule Charter, if you have something in mind.
Let me explain the basis of this. Has anyone, including Markham or anyone else on behalf of the township, done an asset examination of Mr. Bayshore as his assets currently exist, so that we can determine before we spend $10,000, file this claim, or file this claim only against Bayshore for himself and all the other employees, rather than look into whether we can file one against the employees that actually receive these bonuses? Has anyone checked to see if we're going to do anything other than continue to tilt at windmills here, that we might actually be able to recover $1? There was a question brought up earlier. There are plenty of attorneys on the board that know the adage that getting a judgment is one thing and collecting it is something else. Are we doing any due diligence on Mr. Bayshore's financial position before we take this step?
And as I said at the outset, I really don't want to debate these litigation matters. There's information out there regarding Mr. Bayshore, but the board has two things going on tonight. One is, in terms of Mr. Bayshore, one is a surcharge action. There's another matter on the agenda that involves the home loan. You're an attorney. Would you discuss litigation strategy or what we've done or have?
Litigation strategy. Before I sue somebody, I check to find out if they've got nickel one to pay my client. That's what I'm talking about.
That's going to be that's always a consideration.
Disclose the result of that. I'm asking, has anyone? But I assume these are civil matters. These are not criminal. This isn't going to be a case where a U.S. attorney or the district attorney of Delaware County is going to be able to compel victims' restitution from Mr. Bayshore or other employees. It's going to be a case in which, based upon the Home Rule Charter, we are going to bring a civil action against Mr. Bayshore, again, so that we are not expending more taxpayers' money to get nothing more than, possibly the joy of the judgment itself. When he was dismissed, I asked this board going forward to try that I understood why he was dismissed. I agreed to the action it took. But I entreated the board that from this point on, all the money we're going to be spending to hang this guy or not hang this guy and to seek restitution or not seek restitution is ultimately taxpayer money. All I'm saying is, before we go forward with this next step, has there been an adequate determination in your satisfaction that we're likely to see a recovery before we take this step?
No.
And it sounds like the
We'll say
answer is
that.
no.
That's not true.
And I would like to know why.
That's not true. John Rice, we can't comment on litigation. We can't comment.
Your question, has there been an extensive study to see what's
Has there
out there?
been a
And the answer is
determination
no.
as to whether there's
There hasn't been
going
an
to be
extensive study,
the
but we have
potential
looked-
for recovery
We have.
or
ins-
disgorgement or?
We have insurance also.
There's been a discussion about as in any case, the likelihood of recovery, any or all. We also have made claims under our insurance policy. We expect to get the bulk of the $825,000 back, at least a good portion of it, under the policies in effect. Do we know everything that Mr. Bayshore owns, real estate, retirement funds, things that are held jointly? No, we don't know that. But the discussion as to the likelihood of recovery and what needs to be put out, the board has in front of them a $10,000 expenditure to start the process and get the judgment on the record of the Delaware County. Beyond that, any other expenditures are going to have to come back to this board. That's a little step. Christina would like $50,000 approved to do something else. So you're sort of on different sides of this issue.
I'm trying to be practical for
But-
the
but-
taxpayers. Are we going to get anything?
Well, but, we've had that discussion.
Okay.
So,
And I would also interject that if pursuing this avenue is some kind of condition precedent to being able to make a collection from an insurance policy, all the more reason to proceed. But again, as long as that cost-benefit analysis has been done and it's still advisable to proceed, I'm all for this. It's just that, and people have mentioned the costs of audits and the cost of special counsel. I don't think it's ever too late to really start looking at these cost-benefit analysis because ultimately it's our money.
and as you heard me tonight talking about Christina's request, there's a cost benefit in going down any of these paths. How many rabbit holes are we going to go down chasing after Mr. Bayshore? That's always part of the discussion and the conversation. I can't recommend a $100,000 expenditure if the likelihood of recovering 10 makes us feel good, but we're out 90.
Last but not least, is there some assurance that we've gotten from appropriate law enforcement that the commencement of the civil litigation is not going to in any way, shape, or form impede the ability for law enforcement to move forward or disincentivize them? I'm reminded of a regulation the Delaware County District Attorney's Office put forth not too many years back, in which it decided that if it became known to the District Attorney's Office that a civil matter was pending between two individuals, that if a private criminal complaint would be filed or would be requested to be approved by the Delaware County District Attorney's Office, they would not approve it and pursue it for fear of assisting the plaintiff in a civil litigation. Has there been any indication by law enforcement that pursuing the surcharge at this time would impact?
Everything that's on this board's agenda, the law enforcement agencies have had weeks of advance notice, the release of the report, and there has been no request not to go down any of these paths, not to release the report. I had a little bit of a concern. Whether or not they're disincentivized anyway, that's for the law enforcement agencies to answer that question. But when the board started putting together the proposals for the forensic audit, the first question that everyone asked was, is this going to be available to the public? And the board said yes. At the end of the day, when that was done, that was going to be released to the public. So we're doing that. The board's doing that tonight. Mr. Granger and I have made it.
John, I think the first question we asked is, can we get the criminal bodies to pay for it?
Right.
Well, that's another way to skin the cat.
But they won't do that. What the law enforcement agencies will do from here on out, Mr. Taylor, I don't know, but I have been told that they have no problem with the actions that the board's taking. I'm not involved in their investigations other than providing information, which we've done over the last 2 or 3 months, a lot of information from the township. So
Just the confession, the judgment by confession is not going to negatively impact
I don't believe
their motivation or their plans.
I don't believe so. But that's their call. I mean, that's their call. But I don't believe so myself.
Thank you.
If I could just please add that I'd hope that the township might smooth the pathway for any contributory or collateral civil suits, perhaps that Mr. Bayshore might file. I think that should be kept in mind, including regarding Mr. Blake. I think that Mr. Blake is liable in a considerable amount. But that's a theory.
I lost track. Are there any
Moved and
motions
seconded.
pending?
Yep, moved and
Okay.
seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All right, last item under Personnel Administration. We have authorization for the solicitor to file a claim to collect the home loan balance from David Bayshore. John, do you want to comment on this? John Rice?
As the board's aware, part of the original employment contract with Mr. Bayshore involved a home loan of which a portion of it was forgiven every year. There's about a balance of, by my calculation, just a rough number of about $50,000. I think it's important that there be a claim at least put on record. And again, we've had a discussion about the cost-benefit analysis of pursuing this, but it's a claim that's out there. It's a claim that he is responsible for to the township since he's no longer employed. And I'm just looking for authorization to file that claim, and this would be separate from the surcharge action for the balance that's remaining on that loan.
Move the authorization?
Public comment?
Okay.
My understanding of this motion is that you're asking for the remainder, which is, I don't know, $50,000 or
about,
something. Is that what you said?
Right.
That claim. Just for the record, and I wish I could find it, I have the Neil Morris summary report, but for the record, Mr. Bayshore was given a $175,000 bonus to buy his home. And this money in this report, and I can't find the exact page, it basically says that that contract was never approved in public, and it was signed by Mr. Blake, the solicitor, Mr. Pierce, who was the president, Mr. Mahoney, who was the vice president, and the manager himself. According to the Home Rule Charter, no contract could be entered into exceeding $3,000 without board approval and full public disclosure. That didn't happen, and this report somewhere in here, whoever's read the report, I've read the report, I don't know where the page is, but it says that it was not disclosed in public and that therefore it wasn't, it didn't follow the charter, it didn't follow the Sunshine Act. So therefore, I would say we should be going after the $200,000 or the $175,000, and then he got $25,000 for something else. Was it moving expenses or something? Like basically everything that contract was not approved in public. So I think we have to go after, according to this Neil Morris report, which we spent $150,000 getting, we should go after the full amount of that contract because it says that it was not legal. It didn't follow our charter and it didn't follow the Sunshine Act. So I'd ask that somebody amend the resolution to go after the full amount, which was never approved in public.
I agree with your analysis.
Thank you.
That has always troubled me. Mr. Rice, with regard to this particular agenda item, is there any reason, in your opinion, not to amend it and take the position that the entire loan was never properly authorized by a public vote of the Board of Commissioners, and therefore the money, the entire amount, was improperly provided to him.
Well, there is a statute on the Sunshine Act, if we're talking about a Sunshine Act claim. It obviously wasn't approved. It was done on advice of legal counsel at the time. If you have a Sunshine Act claim, you have 30 days to file and void that particular claim. He then was forgiven portions of that over 6 or 7 or 8 years. I'm not sure, since that was done by the township, I'm not sure that gives us a real strong position to pursue that.
But we only found out about it. The other commissioners, Mr. Cannon, Mr. Masterson, I honestly don't remember which other, Ms. Paolino, I think Mr. Havada, I think Mr. Spingler, they only found out about this when this was all disclosed to the public, maybe a month before. So
I wish you were a judge.
well, it's just the facts that say in here that nobody knew about it. So it was a violation of our home rule charter. So why wouldn't we try and go and get the full amount? Why just go after the little amount?
I'm not saying that the board shouldn't authorize that. I'm just saying that it's not, again, there are, again, to Mr. Taylor's concern, spending a lot of money going after whether it's $50,000 or $200,000 that maybe because of a statute have run on part of that claim. It may not be as easy as you make it out to, Christine. That's all.
I'm
But
sure
is it going to diminish? Is it going to diminish the claim that you were contemplating
For the 50.
Right.
No.
To make
No.
it for the full amount.
Yeah, if that's the board's, a mind to do that, that's fine, and we would pursue that, and he may have some defenses, assuming he answers the complaint, to part of that. I just want to point that out before you vote on it, that it's not as black and white. But the full I think it was $175,000 each.
the loan was $175.
The loan.
I'm not a lawyer, but isn't the judge going to say, Mr. Bayshore doesn't have the authority to vote
Right.
on this bonus?
Right.
He was given what he was given, and, there might be fault and there might be problems, but I don't think Mr. Bayshore is responsible for a contract that he signs and he negotiates, and then if the board doesn't correctly authorize it, that's not his fault.
That'll be part of his response and his defense, but I don't see the fact that you authorize the claim for 175 is not going to impact what the balance is, assuming it was forgiven according to the schedule that's set forth in his employment agreement. So if you're of a mind to do that, that's what I'll do.
But if you follow what Christine is saying logically, then every dime that was paid to David Bayshore while he was an employee here under that contract should be reimbursed.
Correct. I agree 100%.
And every
I
dime for
agree.
health benefits, which,
Well,
quite
no.
honestly,
Health benefits are completely separate. That was all part of, but anything in that contract, we should be clawing back. It was an unauthorized contract, never under the Sunshine Act, never approved. There were commissioners that never knew about it.
Well, and again, I'm not pleased with it, but the sunshine rules were different 10 years ago than they are today on personnel matters. And is it Mr. Bayshore's fault? Is a judge going to turn around and say, you signed a contract to be paid X amount of money over an 8-year career, the board that you work for didn't authorize it correctly, so you have to pay the money back that you earned all that time?
Well,
you talk about things that are worth going after, and there are things that are worth going after. I'm not sure this is one of them.
Mr. Havada, he swore that he would uphold the Home Rule Charter. The Home Rule Charter says that no payment shall be made in excess of $3,000 or contract entered into without approval by the board. So he swore to uphold the Home Rule Charter, as did every commissioner, and so therefore he knowingly took this money when he was the representative who was supposed to stand up and say, wait, I know all the rules of the Home Rule Charter inside and out because I am the manager. So It was his job to know. Why not go after every single penny? Every single penny. It says in this report that it wasn't followed correctly. So let's just go after all of it. What the heck? I mean, you know, so some judge may say he only is entitled to $50,000. If we don't go after all of it, why should we admit that that was an appropriate contract? It never was an appropriate contract. This report says it wasn't appropriate. I'll just found one sentence.
Let me ask John Rice. John Rice, I just want to make sure I understood what you said. If we were to file a claim for the full 175, that would not diminish our ability to recover the balance? It wouldn't be used against us in any way?
No.
Okay, well, then I'll amend the authorization to seek, to file a claim for the full $175,000. But we have to recognize that, you know, a judge decides in the end what happens. So whether or not that was voted on in public and, you know, whether or not it's a legally enforceable contract, that's not our decision.
Okay.
John Rice, seems to me there's two very different issues here. One is whether the contract was illegal or not, but the other is that there's a balance remaining because he's no longer an employee.
Correct.
So why wouldn't we file it, break it out as such?
Well, I think that I mean, it'll be broken out once a complaint's filed, but what the board's discussing is trying to recoup the 175. The 50 we know hasn't been forgiven, or approximately 50. The remainder, you know, it's something that he had a hand in approving in a way that was in violation, obviously, of the Sunshine Act at the time and of the Home Rule Charter. So, you know, it's something that's going to have to be fleshed out. And again, see, Mr. Taylor's at the podium. I want to make sure that we don't spend a lot of time on something that we may find out very quickly that there's not assets there to go down this path. And I'm going to stop doing whatever I'm doing on this claim if that happens. So, but we have a basis for the 175. He's going to respond with some defenses that it was authorized, or there's an appearance that it was authorized, or that we're stopped from pursuing some part of this claim. I really don't want to get into a debate of the legal theories at this meeting. I'm fine with the board authorizing a 175, and I'll pursue that claim against the real estate and against him personally.
Thanks, John.
Ken Taylor, as much as I'd like to wring that rag and get as much out of it as possible, I'm forced to remind this board that in response to a request from Commissioner Mahoney to Dan Malloy, Mr. Malloy read minutes of a meeting. This was in response to comments made by former Commissioner Cannon and former Commissioner Paolino that Mr. Mahoney referred to as being fashionably able to forget your role as it was in approving the contract with Mr. Bayshore. And I'm reminded that those minutes indicated that there was an executive session in which there was an enumerated number of then-sitting commissioners who attended with the indication that Cannon was late. So, Mr. Rice, as much as I'd like to see a confession of judgment pursued for the whole 175, I think in this instance, whether he does it in the form of petitioning to open the judgment and then asking the township to make its case, I think there's documentation on the record at that time and in meetings surrounding Mr. Bayshore's termination that would indicate that this board may not be able to conclude that that contract was not adequately approved. And I would remind everyone that this issue was debated by this board somewhat after the fact related to the Bayshore termination, and I believe Mr. Malloy was successful in downloading minutes from the database that indicated that the board did take certain authorized steps. However, it was not done as was the MO at the time, was not done in absolutely open session and in front of the public.
That's
So
one
as
of the
much as I'd like
reasons.
to get every nickel of that 175 in this instance, there's plenty of documentation on the record that would potentially give Mr. Bayshore a defense. My experience in confession of judgments are you go for the gusto, and if they want a petition to open it, then you got to present your case.
And just to follow up what you're saying, Ken, the board either expressly or implicitly received the advice of Mr. Blake that could be done in executive session because it was a quote-unquote personnel matter. Whether or not it was correct under the Sunshine Act at that time or not, I do not know. But the fact of the matter is, and I said this before, that is one of the reasons why Mr. Blake is no longer the solicitor, because he gave the board bad advice. I agree with you. I think that if you're going for all the gusto, as you indicate, Mr. Bayshore may in fact have some valid defenses. But that's up to him.
Certainly detrimental reliance.
Good evening, gentlemen. Dan Sherry, Wayne. Before I speak, the issue of the claim, as it's been described by the solicitor, it hasn't really been fleshed out in terms of what specifically he is looking to file. I've been told before that I'm not allowed to ask questions of the solicitor directly, but it might be helpful for members of the public to understand what exactly Mr. Rice is looking to file once you give him authorization to do whatever it is you're giving him authorization to do.
A complaint.
A complaint in the Delaware County Court of Common Pleas?
Correct.
Okay. Well, I have a number.
And that's, Mr. Sherry, I'm not going to discuss what's going to go in the complaint, but that's what the board's talking about, doing a complaint on that employment agreement, contract claim, to recover the amount in there, $175,000.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that after.
This is public comment, and I'm not going to answer your questions, so if you have public comment, proceed on.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you are acting as a parliamentarian. However, I wasn't going to ask questions about what was actually going to go into the complaint. I was just curious as to whether or not there was going to be a complaint. And I have to say, it is very disconcerting that it takes somebody like Christina Peroni, and I'll be a non-family member of Christina Peroni, who will state that I'm a big admirer of her, to actually come up and tell this board, who has a number of attorneys on it, that you really should be going for the full amount, $175,000, rather than self-capping yourself at $50,000. For people to come up here, or even for this board to state that, well, maybe Mr. Bayshore will have affirmative defenses, or maybe he'll have the equivalent of preliminary objections. That's no justification for not trying to get back every single dollar. The fact that Mr. Bayshore might be judgment-proof, which is speculative at this point. Nobody on this board has said they know specifically what his assets are. And in fact, there's been some back and forth as to whether or not an asset search has even been performed on Mr. Bayshore, is totally separate and apart from whether or not you go after every single dollar that you allege was improperly taken. You know, Ms. Peroni, I know for a fact, is not a lawyer, but the fact that just the light bulb above her head went off and nobody here is very surprising in me. The fact that this board would consider self-capping itself at $50,000 and potentially leaving $125,000 off the table is very disconcerting to me. And I would hope that in any litigation against Mr. Bayshore whatsoever, you do consider going after every single dollar. It's not very hard. I know we're not going to talk specifically about what goes into a complaint, but it's not very hard to say in a complaint, I'm looking to recover $175,000 for breach of contract, as opposed to I'm looking to recover $50,000. It takes only a couple keystrokes. So whatever actually has been discussed in terms of litigation going forward against Mr. Bayshore, I would suggest that it's perhaps more appropriate to cast a wide net until you have a more discernible picture as to what assets Mr. Bayshore has, and that you take that philosophy going forward. One other comment, real quickly, with respect to a couple comments that were made about this building. The fact that there appears to be no proactive action as to looking into the building and looking into several $1 million, I found very troubling. This has been known for multiple months. I believe Mr. Bayshore was fired in March of 2009. It's now December. I imagine you've had discussions with your counsel about, among other things, statute of limitations. But the fact of doing a comprehensive audit and investigation into this building is not merely to go after Mr. Bayshore. I think Mr. Hervada made some valid points when he talked about contractors, ghost contractors, accounts, potentially ghost accounts. The purpose is to find out what happened, and at that point you can evaluate what pockets are available to you. It's not enough, and in fact, in my opinion, it's recklessly irresponsible to say, well, we're dealing with Dave Bayshore, and we think it's very likely that Dave Bayshore is judgment-proof, so as a result, we're just going to sit back and, let bygones be bygones, I guess, until Mr. Bayshore moves forward more formally with his employment discrimination lawsuit. I would say it is much more appropriate to be aggressive, to get to the bottom of everything, particularly this building, particularly the fact that it's dealing with millions of dollars, not just credit card accounts, and that, again, you apply that to all aspects of litigation involving Mr. Bayshore in the future. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, I forgot to ask the board. Was the Bayshore mortgage supplement, was the township protected by means of the filing of a subordinated mortgage where instead of pursuing the claim, we could merely, on any attempt to transfer or sell the property, just handle this in the form of a mortgage payoff statement?
No.
No?
Regarding the contract, Mr. Taylor, whom I really don't know, mentioned that Mr. Malloy brought forth what he thought were minutes from an executive session to say that this that this contract had been approved during executive session. It's my understanding, again, I'm not a lawyer, that executive session you're not allowed to have minutes. Secondly, I have an email from Ms. Paolino saying that she never saw the contract. In addition, it says here 7.11 contracts that basically anything in excess, any written contract, the township involving sums in excess of $3,000 shall be in writing and approved formally by the board. It's unbelievably clear. Unbelievably clear. Then this report that we paid a lot of money for, page 26, basically talks to the failure to present and approve the employment agreement in a public meeting violated the Sunshine Act, and the refusal to disclose the contract violated the right to know law. Incredibly clear, too. Then it goes on to basically say, I highlighted this one. While the board differs in the recollection, all agree the board did not vote or otherwise approve the agreement in public. There is no doubt that this was improper. Done. We need to go after every single penny in that contract. It wasn't a legal binding contract according to our laws, and we should go after all of it. So I would ask that this judgment, again, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't really know what this thing is that you're doing, but whatever this judgment is, and it's not just to go after Mr. Bayshore, maybe we can, as a result, get money from the insurance company. So let's go after all of it. And for that matter, I don't know, if Mr. Blake gave us bad advice, so then let's go after Mr. Blake and his insurance company. That's why we have directors and officers insurance. Let's go after all the people. Mr. Blake was giving advice, very, very bad advice that cost us a lot of money. So let's go after everyone's. Again, I don't know what this, again, I'm not a lawyer, what this thing that you're asking for, but I would write it up to include everything in this contract. It was illegal. It says it in here. So let's go after all the money, not just the 175, everything in that contract. Then we have a basis to maybe go after Mr. Blake as well. He gave bad legal advice, as Mr. Mahoney said.
Okay. Any other public comment? There's a motion that's been moved and seconded to authorize the solicitor to file a claim against Mr. Bayshore. I think that at this point, we ought to authorize Mr. Rice to make a recommendation to us as to the full extent of the claim. I mean, the points that were made tonight, I think, are valid points with regard to the employment agreement never being publicly approved. But
I mean, I think for purposes of tonight, I mean, there's been some other possibilities thrown out there. The motion that I think someone made already was for $175,000. I think that motion you need to approve tonight so that can, at least that part of what was approved in that employment agreement, that's a pretty obvious sum of money. So I would recommend you at least do that. If we want to have some discussion about anything else beyond that arising out of the employment agreement, that we do that in executive session, either tonight or sometime soon.
John, can we just authorize you to file a civil complaint, a claim against David Bayshore, and then through your discussions with us, you set the, I don't think we need to be specific in this motion.
Well, you can authorize me to pursue any amounts.
Yeah, any and all
that
claims.
For which we have a claim. I mean, we've got to have a good faith basis to file a claim under that employment agreement. And we know.
I want to amend the motion. The motion will be to authorize the solicitor to file a claim against David Bayshore for any and all costs associated with the employment contract. Any and all valid claims associated with the employment contract.
okay, is there a second on that?
Second?
Can I please ask the board if maybe it's premature, after all, the latest audit was just, or the investigation was just released. Wouldn't it be wise to wait at least till next week or to get word back from law enforcement before you file any kind of action? I'm not an attorney or a trained attorney, but hasn't this just come out this week?
We have one person telling us we have to do it tonight. We have another one telling us to wait.
Law
I mean,
enforcement.
law enforcement has had this for several weeks, Jim, and they're two separate matters.
Okay, I do
So-
want to, hang on, I do want to add an amendment to this motion that John Rice does in fact contact the authority, the prosecutor's office, and to make sure that by filing the civil action, we don't create any conflict with criminal filings.
Could that include the Attorney General?
Any and all prosecutory bodies.
Just would like to comment on that amended motion real quickly. Dan Sherry. Commissioner Fisher, that's a fairly broad directive to give to a solicitor. From what I understood you just said, you want him to pursue all claims for all monies arising out of the employment contract. Did I understand that motion correctly?
Yes.
Okay, well, there's potentially, I would imagine, a significant number of theories you can proceed under just under that contract alone, not merely breach of contract. And I would state that whoever you have, and I have no idea what Mr. Rice's experience is in terms of drafting these types of complaints or evaluating the various theories of liability. I'm sure he'll do a very competent job. But you need to understand that there may be more than just a breach of contract issue potentially here. So I would caution you that if you're going to go after somebody that comprehensively, you make sure that you have experienced counsel, and you also make sure that by doing so, you're not potentially waiving or forbearing on other claims you may have against Mr. Bayshore with respect to other actions. My just guesstimate is that if there are other claims that are going to occur later, they may be joined with this particular action, and so as a result, when you're going broad, make sure you file comprehensively and you look at all avenues. Thank you.
Okay.
You know, I didn't want to say anything. My name is Monday Novelli from Wayne. I think this meeting is very, very sad. I have never experienced any meeting where I've seen people just want and hate and want to convict and hurt Where is the decency left in this town? I'm sorry. If these folks, and apparently some of them are correct, but I've heard it over and over and over again, why don't they put them on paper? We have a very intelligent and also very independent attorney who's been trying to explain everything to the same people several times. You're doing your job. I can't believe the bitterness and the hate that's being shown here this evening. Mr. Bayshore apparently has done things that he shouldn't have done, and the township has suffered and will suffer for it. But people forgot he was a person, he's a man, and he did an awful lot of good for this township. I wish that Mrs. Perrone and Mr. Sherry, and I think Mr. Taylor, I think I have the names correct, would put these things down and give them to Mr. Rice so he can go through each one of them and report to you and then to us. This is an hour of bitterness going on here tonight, and I don't think it's fair, and I don't think it's good for Radnor Township.
Okay. Any other public comment? I think there was a motion to authorize the solicitor, Mr. Rice, to file a claim against Mr. Bayshore that was amended by Mr. Fisher. And your motion to amend was to include all claims under the employment contract? Is that what it was?
Right. I suggested all valid claims.
All valid claims pertaining to the employment contract.
I just have John Rice, are you comfortable with the way that's worded?
That's fine.
Okay.
Second?
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Nothing further on personnel administration.
Parks and Rec?
One item on the agenda tonight, just make the announcement of the Holiday at the Willows celebration, which is sponsored by TD Bank and the Radnor Township Park and Recreation Department. It's going to be held on Sunday, December 13th, from 2 to 4. There's all kinds of activities for the kids. Santa Claus is going to be there. It's at the Willows Mansion. It is a free holiday event with crafts, face painting, and more. Radnor Township Girl Scouts, children's parents, and guests are invited. Come early, refreshments, music, and a lot of fun. Sunday, December 13th, 2 to 4 at the Willows. If you have any questions, feel free to call the Park and Recreation Department here at the Township. That's it. Thanks.
Public Health?
We have a notice from the Radnor Township School District that they will be offering H1N1 vaccine to school-age children. The vaccine will be available to Radnor children from K through 12th grade on December 11th, 12th, and 13th. That is Friday, December 11th from 4 to 8 p.m., Saturday, December 12th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and Sunday, December 13th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. These vaccinations will occur at the Radnor Elementary School at 20 Madison Ford Road in Radnor, Pennsylvania. And this is the H1N1 influenza injectable vaccination. Again, for children ages K through 12, kindergarten through 12. I don't believe this vaccine is available to adults or any other groups, so you must be a Radnor resident, and you must be in grades K through 12. For further details, you may want to visit the school district website at rtsd.org. No further report.
Okay. Public Safety?
There's two items on the agenda. Two items on the agenda. The first is adoption of ordinance number 2009-29, which amends the speed limit on Banbury Way to 25 miles per hour.
Move the adoption.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next item is ordinance number 2009-30, which is up for adoption. It amends the Radnor Township Vehicle and Traffic Code, rescinding ordinance number 2007-16. Essentially, it is to eliminate the prohibited parking, which was around the middle school during construction.
Move the adoption?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's it for public safety.
Public Works and Engineering?
Yes, the first is announcement of 2 vacancies on the Planning Commission. We interviewed some people this evening. We're looking to appoint at our next meeting, so if anyone's interested, they'd have to get a hold of Bill Martin this week so that we could interview you next week so we can make the appointment so the Planning Commission will have a full complement going into next year. The other thing is the introduction of a proposed ordinance amending the floodplain ordinance regulations. Dan?
I probably should turn it over to Mr. Rice.
Okay.
This has to be introduced and forwarded on to the Planning Commission and the public hearing set.
You have a comprehensive update of your floodplain regulations and your zoning ordinance that FEMA requires every time they change the regulations. It trickles down through the state agency. So tonight is just to introduce it. This has to go through the planning process to the Planning Commission, local Planning Commission, county Planning Commission, and once the reviews are done, it'll be back. So it's just for introduction tonight.
Do we have to set up a public hearing?
I wouldn't set, you will eventually, but I don't think you need to set it tonight until we get the reviews back.
Okay. I'll move the introduction and refer to the Planning Commission.
Second.
Public comment. I understand the need to update this ordinance, and I bring this up only because it seems that this is the time the board, when I made a prior objection to this particular zoning ordinance, the board suggested that basically if you don't think it supplies the public with notification of a floodplain delineation line movement, and you think that ought to be in the ordinance, then at the appropriate time, bring it up. Well, here we are, and that's why I'm bringing it up. We can get 2 birds with 1 stone. Mr. Rice, you weren't here, but some time ago, it was determined in connection with a request under the zoning code that was before this board to move a floodplain delineation line, that it was the regular practice under the existing ordinance of the township engineer, who's designated as the stormwater management official for the township, that in instances in which an application would come before the township that didn't involve referral or requirement to go before building and planning or the zoning board, the zoning hearing board, that the township engineer was the sole arbiter of an applicant's request to move the delineation of the floodplain lines, subject to requirements for that applicant to make its case through submission of engineering documents to Mr. Malloy in order to so move him. What was complained about by me at that time was that the zoning ordinance says that after he makes the initial decision, is made by the township engineer, and that this is in 280.75C, it says any party aggrieved by the decision of the township engineer as to the boundaries of the floodplain and may appeal to the zoning hearing board. It was determined at the time this was brought up that the public is not receiving any notification that would put it on notice to allow it to have the proper time frame to appeal such a decision to the zoning hearing board, because at that point in time there appeared to be no public forum in which the decisions of the township engineer to move these floodplain delineation lines were being made known to anyone other than the applicant. I think we could easily amend subsection B.
Well, Ken, we're not going to amend anything tonight. We're just introducing it.
I'm suggesting that the board perhaps consider that while we're doctoring the statute to comply with updated
I know.
floodplain
And
legislation.
what we should do is go to the planning commission, get them to amend it, and make the recommendation to commissioners. If they don't do it, you come to the public hearing, and the commissioners can change it.
I'm just asking that we broach this topic. And it would be very easily done by stating in subsection B that it shall be the responsibility of the township engineer, having made such an initial determination, to inform the public of the date and that decision, so the public then is on notice under C to decide whether it is an aggrieved party and wishes to appeal that floodplain line delineation. I would be more than happy to suggest language. I have it written down here.
You'll appear at the planning commission when it's on the agenda and make that recommendation to them, and hopefully they'll amend it.
I'll be
And if-
there and try to dovetail a correction in that statute with the one that you have before you.
Okay, thank you.
See,
That's it.
John Rice, I have
Oh,
a
I'm
question. Section 2 in 280-75.
280-75?
Yeah, 280-75.
Okay.
Just want to make, I'm sorry, page 4. I assume we're adding, not adding, it flows A to E. Should that be A to B, or is E actually the section that will be? It might be a
Yeah,
typo.
You're amending the maps listed in subsection A, but E is the amendment there, the underlined.
Okay, so we're
language.
adding verbiage to section E?
Right.
Okay.
It reads Federal Insurance Administration now, which no longer exists.
Right.
And it's FEMA.
All right,
So,
thank you.
I mean, all of these changes came from FEMA. I mean, you have and it's required, other than you'll be removed from the FEMA floodplain program. Had to be done by, at least advertised by the end of this year, which we've done.
John, does it make sense that we make any changes to the document based on Ken Taylor's comments?
No, we can't. We're just introducing, John.
Yeah,
I understand that, but if we introduce it as we want it to be, the process goes a little easier rather than having to have it amended later. Because once it gets to the planning commission in Delaware County, then if we make changes then, it has to go back again. So making changes now in the introduction would make more sense than making changes later. So I'm just asking the solicitor whether these changes should be put in now.
What I would suggest, I don't think it's necessary to do it now. If Mr. Taylor wants to, I think I understand the issue, notice to the public when the township engineer. Okay.
Under B, it says that when Dan.
Well, I'm sorry, you have to go to a mic. No one at home can hear you.
Ken, is this 280-75B?
Right, it was one of the ones that was skipped in your proposed legislation. They went from A all the way down to E.
It's not proposed to be changed.
The changes.
So, but
yes.
I have that 280-75B
Right.
and C.
What
Right.
came out in connection with the 236 North Aberdeen, and that did come to you because it went to building and planning, it was a subdivision plan. So in that instance, both building and planning and the board, it got tabled and the applicant sold the property, so you didn't have to act on it. But the board would have been the one entreated to move the floodplain lines. But during the discussion of the zoning ordinance at the time, it became apparent that Mr. Moy is asked on a basis that is not made public to move these lines. At the time we discussed it, it was engineering studies are done, and what I brought up was that the flow rates that these engineering studies are based upon are from 1976, not adjusted for increase in impervious surface. And one of the things that was troubling when we were speaking about that is that when someone comes just with a building permit and asks Mr. Malloy to, based on the engineering studies, to move the floodplain, that unless you're, so retentive that you're looking at every building permit in the township, that the public, and I think more than just the applicant, could be considered an aggrieved party if a floodplain line is being moved. I live up against Gulf Creek, so I think I could be an aggrieved party if that happened. that the public is not put on notice so that it knows when its appeal to the zoning hearing board rights begin and end. Merely by adding language to B that says, after the last sentence ending in make the determination, it shall be the responsibility of the township engineer to report all initial determinations to the public, including the effective date of these determinations within 10 days. In some kind of a public forum, whether that would be on the website or it would be at the next regular scheduled Board of Commissioners meeting, so that the public, if they're aggrieved by his decision, would know that they have the requisite number of days to go to file an application before the zoning hearing board or forever be silent on the issue. And I agree with you that why we're modifying this ordinance, this is a great time to get this done.
John Rice, does it make any sense to introduce Ken Taylor's amendment, or would you like him to forward his proposed verbiage to, I guess, the Radnor Township Planning Commission and have them do it?
I think it would make more sense to put it, because there'll be other changes, I'm sure. The Planning Commission, this is another one. Unless it gets advertised, I mean, once it's advertised, all the revisions ought to be in there. So we
Okay.
don't start the whole process over again. So I would, Mr. Taylor would get involved at the planning and send me the language also. You know, whatever you want to do, because I want to look at, because that section's not proposed to be revised under what FEMA told us we had to revise. That wasn't one of the sections, so.
I know this is the second version, it's not related to the other.
But if it makes some sense, and it looks like it does, because there ought to be some notice of any kind of a decision that an aggrieved party might have. So I would do both. If you could do that and then send me whatever you think makes some sense. This just is a very initial, let's get the process going, get it
Okay,
to
I'm
the
fine.
Planning Commission.
Okay.
Move the
It's
second.
been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye. That's it under Public Works and Engineering.
Okay. Old business? No old business? New business?
I have one item. I had traversed the township a few times on foot and bicycle in the last couple months, and from the east side all the way to the west side and back. And
Foot?
yeah,
Bicycle.
no, foot and bicycle.
Oh, foot and bicycle.
And I stopped by Bill's Park and took a rest there. It was nice.
It's a community park.
Yeah.
Come all the way over to our neighborhood?
I did a lot. One thing I noticed is that in order for people who live east of Radnor Chester Road, it's very difficult to get to the trail. And we have the Radnor Trail Committee working on extending the trail through Martha's Brown Woods, and that trail extension will be used for mostly foot traffic. There won't be an ability for bicycles or rollerblades or anything else. So anyway.
Well, that's not true, because I'm not supporting that. I wanted a full extension.
Well, okay, but anyway, that plan is going to take a lot of time. And what I found was that there were a lot of people walking across the Radnor Township High School property along Lancaster from the Blue Route all the way to Radnor Chester Road. And there's even a trail beaten into the grass there. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask the solicitor to approach the school district to see what we can do there. Maybe it could be a joint project between the school district and the township, but we don't need to put sidewalks in, but we want to consider putting gravel in, something easy.
Just so you know, the trail is the cross-country trail for the high school. Cross-country
I realize.
trail. Believe me, my kids have beaten that trail.
Yeah.
Silly.
But the, just.
Anyway, the point is,
but
I
let me
want to try to make a
we
connector.
have I think Tom, I
Yes.
think you actually were the fellow who approached the school district at my request, because it was pointed out to me that if you run from Lowry's Lane down to Radnor Chester Road, that stretch is the only place on Lancaster Avenue that high school.
And when they built-
And the high school, the school district was amenable to putting a sidewalk in there at the township's cost.
Yeah.
And it's in the old capital plan for like $125,000 or $150,000 out to like in 2013 or 14.
And just so we know, the state offered to put a sidewalk there when they built the Blue Route, and the school district didn't want it because the cross-country team ran there. You could have had a free sidewalk. It's the only section of Lancaster Pike without a sidewalk, and the school district decided back then when they built the Blue Route that they didn't want the sidewalk.
So I guess where I'm going with this is, I don't know if I'm asking for a sidewalk, but I'm asking that the solicitor contact the solicitor of the school district, and the school district can see if we can come to some agreement of whether or not we can put some type of a pathway in there that's more amenable to bicycles and foot traffic.
You need a sidewalk there, because handicapped people, people in wheelchairs, you need a sidewalk, is what you need.
Okay. Well, we need to open that negotiation with the school district because it is their land. And I'd like to move to have John Rice at least open that dialogue up.
Again, we've already had it. We don't need to do it. They told Tom directly that if we want to do it,
Now,
they'd be
yeah,
acceptable.
if we want to do it, I'm talking about more of a joint venture. It is their property. I think they would benefit in some ways because of the students that actually don't just take buses to school. They walk and ride bikes and whatnot.
Well, John, why don't you go meet with the school district and talk to them about it?
Well, I can do that, but I think,
I mean, John Rice has a lot on his plate, John.
okay.
You know, if we want a sidewalk there, we can get one if we're willing to pay for it. We don't have the money right now, so.
I'm not asking for a sidewalk. Right now, there's gravel, but there's not much gravel.
They're going to tell us, based on the conversation Tom had, that they would allow us to do anything we want as long as we don't impede that cross-country trail on our dime.
Okay.
And please keep in mind, it was several years ago, and leadership has changed.
Yeah, and I think we need to reopen that conversation. So, okay, if we don't have John Rice, maybe Tom Blumstrom, we could have, Tom, we could have you contact the school district and get an update for us on that. I think we're missing some really low-hanging fruit here. We're talking about a stretch that's maybe 1,000 feet that would connect the entire east side of the township to the trail. Now, granted, we're going to do a trail extension, but we know that could take 5 to 10 years. I don't think we need to wait 5 to 10 years to do this.
Where are you going to get the money, John?
Again, it's gravel, and gravel is cheap compared to
Right,
sidewalks.
but I mean, you can't be the sprint, the guy who wants to cut costs and then sit here and talk about capital projects down Lancaster Pike.
So maybe we apply for some grants.
Okay, I just asked where
Okay,
you
but
going to get the money.
we can't do anything there unless the school district agrees. So we need to at least get them into a dialogue of what they would permit.
Well, it's
and then
PennDOT's
based
right
on
away.
that-
I'm not so sure that's true. If we really wanted to put a sidewalk in, PennDOT has the right of way, that we could probably do it.
But that's fine.
But-
Tom,
Go ahead.
we talked to them a few years ago. They said we could do what we wanted. Tom will talk to them again.
And Dan Malloy, do you happen to know about the ROW along Route 30 there, how far that extends onto the school district property?
The right-of-way for Lancaster Avenue was 60 feet, so it's generally 30 feet from the center line of the road. Bill's telling me it's 5 feet? All right, Bill thinks it's less in that area.
Because it's a two-lane highway on each side, yeah.
Dan, could we get that information from you as well?
Yeah, I
Just to have an
have some
idea.
plans from when the Blue Route was constructed that would show that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other new business? Okay. Any other public participation?
Good evening again, gentlemen. I appreciate this, this agenda. One thing that I found interestingly absent on the agenda tonight, although it was covered in some newspapers, was the $250,000 grant that was apparently approved by the Commonwealth with respect to the Willows Cottage. I'm a little curious as to why this wasn't discussed on the agenda. Now Commissioner Nagel, as you may recall, was involved, some might say embroiled, with respect to this particular grant.
What was that word?
Embroiled?
Embroiled, okay, I missed it.
Okay, no, not umbrella, embroiled, Commissioner Spengler.
No, I thought you said broiled.
But,
I was wondering.
okay, but in any case, it was not discussed tonight, and I'm a little curious as to why that is. And I'm also curious as to whether or not there were any requirements or stipulations or conditions associated with that money when it was authorized by the Commonwealth. The newspaper report didn't talk about it very much, but I'm curious as to whether or not any members of this board received the formal notice, I guess the term of art would be, from the Commonwealth that the grant money had been approved, and whether there are any parameters. Can anybody answer that question?
Oh, we all got the email, and we're sending data back to them to finalize that grant.
Okay, so there was an email?
No, we received all the grant documents
Yeah.
from the state. We reviewed those documents, solicitor looked at those documents, and I believe that it required official board action, administrative action, meaning someone had to sign something to approve of that grant from the township side of things.
Was that done?
I don't know if we've, is that finished?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was done.
Maybe I don't understand the process then. So notification came down from the state that there's $250,000 associated now with, I think it was pitched as geothermal
It was
heat.
awarded, it was awarded for the energy saving projects at the Willows Cottage.
I understood that from the newspaper article, Commissioner Fisher. What I'm asking was, when you got that notification or the award, what action was taken by this particular body? And alternatively, what documents did you get from the state with respect to that grant? And are they available for public viewing?
Sure.
They are?
Sure.
Okay, so it was not an email, it was documents
Well,
that
but
came in?
I printed them from the email, okay? I'm getting really good at this stuff, okay?
I'm happy to hear that. Okay, very good. Now, one follow-up question. Has that money been distributed at this point?
No. It hasn't, the money hasn't been received. We received a letter notifying us that we were awarded the grant. We received documentation concerning the original application, and then all this follow-up documentation, and a lot of forms that will need to be filled out, you know, based on the work that has to be done at the Willows Cottage. So at this point, it's really I guess at the beginning stages. And John, you probably wanted to speak to this.
Well, what we received essentially was a regurgitation of the grant application, but in somewhat different format. The next step for us is to issue requests for proposal, because we're going out to bid for the work. And then we have an obligation to provide monthly reports to the state and accounting for all the money and showing that it was spent in accordance with the grant.
Okay, just because I haven't seen these grant documents, and this was a major issue for me, and I'll be very happy to hear if it's not a condition with respect to the money. Is the residency of the farmer involved in the money at all as represented by the state in terms of the grant application?
No.
It's not in there, it's not a condition? Okay, very good, I'm delighted to hear that. Have a good evening, gentlemen.
Any other public participation?
Mr. Spingler asked people to come forward and express concern at last month's meeting about the one-way change to School Lane. And, you know, I actually come up South Wayne and saw that a couple weeks ago, and I said, when did that change? It's a recent change, the one-way you can only go west on School Lane.
About 4 months ago.
4 months.
Oh, well, my son drives now. Maybe I don't go up there as often as I used to. I don't need a long explanation now, but if there's somebody here who can give me background about why the change was made and
I
the
can.
purpose of it and all that.
The builder applied for permits to build that building. We approved the building, and our police department felt that it was a safety issue. I personally am not pleased about it, and I have vehemently given my opinion regarding that subject. They came to us, and really the option was to shut it down totally for several hours a day, or to make it one-way full-time. Those were the two options from a safety perspective. And, you know, there's one department here that I really don't argue with, and that's the police department. And when they talk about safety, I'm not a safety expert. And as much as I was very displeased by the fact that they're closing that, because I have children at the middle school and I traverse that area quite often, and I feel it's an inconvenience. And I've been told by many people, even though Bill swears no one in his ward has said anything about it, I've had people come up to me in his ward, tell me that they're going to talk to him about it. And I'm sure that they have. And I have been assured that as soon as possible, they are working to finish the project, to get the scaffolding done. And I'm not a builder either, but to get the Portland Park done. And they're going to do it as soon as possible. And hopefully in February, March timeframe, they can move it back to one way.
Something was said at the November 23rd meeting that, or maybe I read it on the website, that led me to believe the possibility existed that one-way designation could become permanent. And that's what I wanted to speak about, is that, I actually use that to avoid clogging up Lancaster Avenue when I
And
want to go east.
A lot of people do.
Yeah.
Okay, and it really helps the traffic in there to have it both ways.
Right.
And the vendors and the businesses along there. I guess anything's possible, but I'm under the impression that we're not even legally we might not be able to do it. We might have the police comment on that, but I've heard a lot of people say they want to get back as soon as possible. And it's my intention, I won't be sitting on this board, but I will be following this issue very closely to make sure that we get back. I'll be
Well,
calling- I'll be
Mr.
calling-
Spindler said come forward, so I'm coming, because as soon as I saw it, I was like, wow,
Yep.
that'll be a big drag.
You're the third person that's talked to me about it, so.
I've had
Ricky got
a
hundreds.
lot of people talk to me.
He harassed a woman in my ward. She got me at the Acme last week. She was the first one in my
She came up
ward.
to me,
She
Bill.
was the first one in my
She came
ward.
up to
bring it
me and told me that,
Right.
and I asked
We
her
will-
what ward she was in, and she told me yours, and I said, well, Bill swears no one's ever mentioned this to him. and this
She
is
was
my
the
ward.
first one from my ward.
I
She
said,
was the
call Bill.
first, so.
So,
But it's a major
second
issue
thing
in the
I bring up
township,
tonight
yeah.
that I had no idea, the little can of worms, apologize about that. It is, I think we should be looking to try to take away some of the clogging on Lancaster Avenue, and, you can park in the back and run into Saxby's and Lucky Duck and all that, it's
Well,
nice
some
to
of
do
us-
that.
Some of us that live in that community, we'd rather have the traffic stay on Lancaster Avenue than come in our community. So we don't mind the clogging on Lancaster because then they're not on Midland Avenue and St. David's Road. So the people I represent like people staying on Lancaster Pike as much as they can, so.
And
difference of opinion.
pretty sure the township codes don't allow for us to have selective traffic like that, just for people's, what they like in their neighborhood. But,
We do one ways and don't enter, Aldwin Lane, you can't enter certain days and all down.
yeah, I'm not
so-
sure it's all legal, but.
Yeah, it is all
The
legal.
last thing I wanted to comment on is, which it keeps getting glossed over here, and it is a concern to me. I was at the school district earlier, so I missed the first part of the meeting with the liquor ordinance for that new place that's going to be where the Rite Aid and the Acme are now, but I've heard very little discussion here. I've seen very little in the paper about the loss of the Acme store in Wayne. And I think it's really a shame, and I do look to the board at times to be leaders for the good of the overall community. And I actually followed and tried to track down through Baker Properties and through Acme Supermarkets management over the summer information about why are they closing, when are they closing, what's going on, what are the dynamics going on, and got stonewalled by one of those two companies, not by the other. It will be a real loss to Radnor community, and I don't understand why you guys are talking about the coal fireplace coming in, another restaurant, another liquor license, and there's very little talk about the unintended consequence of losing a food store that people can, walk to in Wayne. You can walk to the Gennardi's, but it's difficult. And I don't really understand that we won't have a food store. And in all the land, the comprehensive land plans that called for, a walkable Wayne, and we built that big condominium place behind the Land Rover, and we want a walkable Wayne, and you're taking away a food store. People will now have to drive to the food store. It doesn't seem to be consistent to me with the whole plan about. And I recognize that the Acme technically is outside of the Wayne master plan, but it really only by the corner. The other side of the street is in fact included in it. So, I'm surprised by that. I'm surprised at what occurs for me as a pretty blasé attitude by the board of losing a food store there. And Mr. Springler, I don't always think that you should take just the fact that one or two people take the time to come and say something to you, that means it doesn't matter. I really get what Andrea Peroni said earlier. I marvel at Christina's perseverance here because I care a lot, and I have many, many, many commitments, and it's really a big deal when I can make the time to get here, and my husband's in town, and the little one, I don't need a sitter to get out. So I don't think that you should take the lack of. I get that you have to make your decisions and you try your best. People care. They'll care about School Lane. We'll care about losing Acme. Anyway, I'm struck by that, and I missed the earlier conversation about the oil fire.
Well, we spent many, many hours on the Acme, okay, to try and keep them here, to try and let them, the part of the lease that says no other food store can go there. They wanted to put a Best Buy's there. We've worked very hard. Our staff has been working very hard on that property for a long, long time. And the Acme was supposed to go a year ago, and it's still there.
Mhm.
It's probably eventually going to go, and we'll miss it. But we've been working try and get a replacement food store there or whatever we could. So we haven't been sitting back doing nothing.
Again, it wasn't really reported in the paper, and I'm
No.
not able to come to all these meetings. It's a shame. So then efforts were made, and we can't figure out a way to bring in another food store to
Well,
take the
Acme
space.
Market is part of their lease. If they leave, they can't put another food store there, and they've been unwilling to change that
Wow.
as far as I know yet, but
Okay.
our staff will
It's
continue to
actually,
work.
Susan, so you know, it's actually a restriction on the landlord there. When Acme went in there, they negotiated a lease which essentially said that if we leave, you are not permitted to put a grocery store within a certain area, 2 miles, of any other existing grocery store, any other existing
Wow.
Acme's. There's one right up in Stratford, which is within 2 miles.
The
And
Devon
so-
one.
So from a legal standpoint,
Your
the
hands are
landlord's
tied.
hands were tied.
Okay.
So I know that Matt Bauman worked very, very hard on that, trying to
Well, I
massage
appreciate
it.
that. Again, not really reported in the paper, and I contacted Sam Strike about this over the summer because I was like,
Sam's good, but she's not omniscient. She doesn't know everything that's going on.
Right.
She does a darn good job reporting
Yeah, no,
around
I
here.
just-
But
No, it's a
we
shame.
did work very hard on it, and believe me, I live a half a
Yeah.
mile away from it, and I
Okay.
enjoy being able to go there as much
And
as
I
anybody.
used to manage Acme Markets. It's the only place I shop. My wife doesn't like Acme, and I force her to go there, and she hates me for it, but, I'm an Acme guy.
well, when my husband shops,
Yeah.
he likes that Acme, so. All right, well, thank you. I mean, I'm sad to hear that. I'm glad to hear you guys, and I missed the conversations about that, but, yeah, it's a real shame for the township. All right, that was it. Thank you.
This has been a long evening. I want to congratulate you, Tom, on being a distinguished president of the board for these many years. You've had a lot of difficult problems, and you've handled them beautifully.
Well, thanks. I've only been the president this 1 year.
It's felt like 10 years,
Yeah, that's
trust
right.
me.
It felt like 10 years. Yeah.
Microphone, please. The,
Microphone.
all right.
Yep.
The events we've been hearing about tonight concerning the township manager is really tragic for Radnor Township. How it ever came about, I'll never know. I know I tangled with Bay Shore 4 or 5 years ago when you were temporary quarters. Because Dave Bayshore had been fired, who was a chief accountant. And I asked him why he was fired, and he said, well, I wanted to see all the checks, but Bayshore wouldn't let me see the checks.
Did you mean Dave Fiorenza?
Pardon?
Did you mean Dave Fiorenza? You said Dave Bayshore.
Bayshore wouldn't let Fiorenzo, who was chief accountant, see all the checks.
Okay.
And so he got fired. And now Fiorenzo's gone on. He's been become a township manager someplace or other in Pennsylvania. But here we've got this beautiful building commissioners have built, and I think township's well on its way to, after we get through this recession and taxes and sales of houses, one thing or another, we'll get a better tax flow coming in. I think the future holds a lot for Radnor Township. I know that when I left the commissionership in way back in 1970, I was elected in 1966, and went to Washington to do management consulting with governments and states. I always came home every weekend back to Radnor. I didn't want to move because it's such a beautiful place with great people and a great, how to put it, a great concern for good government. And I think we've seen that here tonight. And I think the tragedy of Dave Bayshore is the terrible stain on the township. I remember 3 or 4 years ago when you were in temporary quarters, I got up and criticized Bayshore for firing Dave Forenza because he couldn't see all the checks. And right at that point, Bayshore, sitting right beside me, he glared up at me, and I got a couple terrible letters from him and Dave Blake about what I had done, what I'd said. But this Bayshore situation has been a boil on the face of our township. And you're working at it. I think you're going to succeed. And I hope we get another wonderful township manager. I know we had one many years ago who was outstanding. But all I can say on one thing about you, Tom, is congratulations on your tenure. You've been a very astute and open president of the board.
Thank you.
Congratulate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Art Beebe. I reside in Bryn Mawr, Radnor Township. I'm not a public speaker, but I do remember one thing. Like King Henry VIII said to his wives, I won't be keeping you long. Just want to make a couple comments. I grew up in Wayne, Radnor Township, and had to go to work. And then I've always wanted to come back to Radnor because there was something really nice about Radnor Township. And I knew this is the place that I would like to reside to raise my family. And I accomplished that, came back in 1980. I guess some of the concerns I've had since I've been here, this is the first meeting that I've attended, and it's really opened up my eyes. I just sincerely wish that a lot of other Radnor Township people, like myself, would come here and see what goes on. I really realize and sympathize that it's really tough to run a township. I don't know how you guys sleep at night. A lot of tough decisions and sacrifices that you have to make. And the people that voted you in, you know, if they're not attending these meetings and don't know what's going on in their own township and it's their money and what you've been elected to do, they're really missing the boat. I think that we have a lot of talented and capable people in Radnor Township, along with you gentlemen. And I think if we put all our heads together and our creative resources, we could get out of the economical jam that we seem to be in right now. I'm sitting back there. I don't think I'm the most creative guy, but it all gets down to money. You had, John, a good suggestion that we need a gravel path. Well, why not ask for volunteers? Make it a school project. The people that use it, that are walking across there, ask for money. People aren't afraid to do that, but I don't think they realize the need or the benefits that it's going to be for themselves or future generations. The main reason I wanted to stop by here tonight, and I plan in the future to attend more regularly, is I'm concerned about the request for deleting the curbside service. And I was curious, what is the latest opinion of that? Are we going to keep it? Because I think it's a very unique offering that we have for the individuals of Radnor Township. I live right on the border of Haverford Township, and Haverford Township has curbside pickup. And believe me, that day when they have it picked up, Haverford Township looks like a pigsty. I'm very proud of Radnor Township. Two people in the family are working, they'll get the trash out. They may not be able to pick it up that night when they get home. It just really, in my opinion, detracts from the township. Again, I think Radnor is very unique. I think we could overcome the situation and have our cake and eat it too by being a little more creative. I wasn't privy to the other meetings. I can't justify in my own mind how we can save $560,000 or whatever it was just by not walking up the driveway. Plus, it's going to be putting people out of work. I just want to quickly ask as far as, how does that stand today? Have you reconsidered, or do you still think it's a luxury to have that uniqueness in Radnor Township?
Well, the state of the record is the majority of the board has voted to eliminate rear yard pickup. So that's where things stand
That's
right
not,
now.
I think, technically correct. The majority of the board.
Well, I guess my concern on that.
The majority of the board has proposed a budget in which it is eliminated.
Right.
I guess my concern on that is that, again, as I alluded to originally, that you are in the position to represent the masses that voted you in. And for, the group to say, we're not going to do this, and take something away that has really been a privilege, a uniqueness to Radnor Township, is very difficult. So again, it's down to money. And I honestly think that there are ways that money could be saved and keep the uniqueness in Radnor Township.
We're going to be voting on the budget next Monday.
Okay.
You're welcome to
I
come.
guess what concerned me is that we all got the card in the mail, which I don't know, maybe that cost us $5,000, but the stack of cards were loaded. You had two questions, but the question, do you really want to, do you want to keep it and cut the budget in other areas where we're spending money foolishly? We never had that opportunity to express it. And we're talking about, what, 7,400 homeowners that aren't going to have that luxury anymore. I mean, a guy like me, there's a lot of younger people, but it's tough for me to put the trash down there. What's going to happen for someone like myself? Have you had any thoughts?
Well, that was my concern. There was no contingency plan. Four of these guys on this illustrious board just voted to take it out of the budget with no ideas or plans on what to do on day one when they stopped this service. They decided that it was worth firing 4 full-time people at the holiday season to eliminate this service that some view as a luxury and I view as part of the charm of Radnor and a necessary item for a lot of people considering the length of the driveways that we have here. We're not Haverford Township. We have a lot of long driveways, and there was no contingency plan whatsoever that I've seen to do that. So I agree with you 100%. And next meeting, it's going to be on the budget, and maybe some guys will vote for it, maybe some guys won't vote for it. But I can tell you this: I'm not going to.
The guys work very hard. I watch them. They work real hard collecting the trash, etc. And I don't see them goofing off or wasting any time. But how do we come up with the
Well, there's a million ways to look at it. I mean, what I've always said is when we have a new manager in place, we should do a comprehensive look at our trash collection, see if there's ways to cut money, and we should do a comprehensive look at everything. And I think that's what we're going to do. But as you can tell by tonight's meeting, we've obviously had a lot on our plate in the last 12 months that we've had to deal with. And I think it's a knee-jerk reaction to just go out and say we're going to save $250,000, fire 4 guys, and eliminate a service we've had for 75 years to 60% of our township to save $250,000 on a budget like ours. I think it's a bad decision and a knee-jerk reaction. But unfortunately, I'll only be here for one more meeting, and then some other people are going to step in for Tom and myself, and these guys will make a decision on it. We'll all make a decision on it, the immediate fate of it at the next meeting, and then going forward from there. But that's my opinion on it.
Like I said, I don't envy your position. It's got to be really tough to run a township. And you want to do the right things, etc. But I don't think you can contain all of it yourself. You ought to be looking for outside help for John Doe like myself and other people.
Well, there's a lot of ways to look at it, and my biggest concern last week when we did this was there was absolutely no contingency plan. Bill said, we'll work it out. And I have a lot of respect for Bill, and he's a friend of mine, but to just say, we'll work it out, was not good enough for me. And I told him that.
Without the contingency plan or really getting, I don't think
nothing.
The people around our township, that it's really
most of them have no idea.
Yeah.
They're going to come one day. The truck's going to roll by, not pick up the trash, and they're going to call the township and say, "What's going on?" I mean, most people aren't watching these meetings and aren't paying attention to this, and that's exactly what's going to happen.
I could give you a couple of suggestions that several people wouldn't like how the township could save a lot of money.
There's always ways, and no matter what decision we make, somebody's not going to be happy, and somebody is going to be happy, and that's the nature of the business that we're in. But I can tell you this: it'll be discussed at our next meeting.
But it's,
If you should decide, and I won't hold you up any longer, if you should decide that you're going to still go with that curbside, I would love to chat with you and give you some heavy-duty recommendations to save money on the condition that you wouldn't take it away.
I'm not voting to eliminate it, so you're gonna talk to the other guys, because I'm not
How
gonna
about
vote.
you, Bill?
Art, I'll come to your house.
You think we should have it?
What's that?
Curbside?
We can't afford it. You know.
Did I just hear John Nagel offer to come to your house and do your trash?
No, I said I'd come to his house
I
and
was
talk
out
about
on
his
Saturday in the
suggestions.
snow for 2 hours. I didn't watch the Eagles game 2 hours. I'm visiting everybody with a long driveway. Everyone that's written a letter, I've gone and seen them personally. I've talked to the people, and
Well, not to pick on
But
you,
did
Bill,
you-
but
Bill,
I've
did you
known-
listen to
we've
any
known
of
each
them?
other
Did
as
you-
far as
did you
young
listen to any
kids,
of
but
I
you
told
wanna-
them I'm a problem solver, and I'll solve the problem.
But see, that's the
Yeah.
problem, Billy. Again, I respect you, but that's not an answer.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well,
And I'll take care of it.
If
It's
any-
not an answer.
If anybody has seen my record over the last 28 years.
60% of the township uses a service, and you're just
No,
gonna shut
no.
it off one day.
I don't agree.
Yeah.
And you're gonna,
Okay.
you just, the trucks are gonna just drive by their house, and if it's not at the curb, I don't wanna be, Billy Hagan, you should take a vacation week that week, because it is gonna be an absolute nightmare.
Well, if you,
And
as
I
you-
wouldn't begrudge him if he did. I would suggest that he do, because it'll
you-
be an absolute nightmare here. 'Cause
You're-
I'm telling you, most people have no idea this is coming.
But you have the information in your
Enrique-
packet that we're going to be
Enrique.
disseminating to the people.
Hold on.
Bill.
I think what you're saying is disingenuous because we were provided a whole packet
I saw it.
of communication pieces surrounding that whole change. There'll be mailings, there'll be literature drops. Everyone will know that it's coming.
And it's February 1st, right?
But it
But
was
there will be some people that won't get
But it
those
was the wrong
notices,
notice. You know, the postcard we got only gave you two options, and it was a win-win for
Well-
not having it.
A lot, you know what, I hate to see the service go. I'm going to vote against, I'm going to vote for the budget as it's presented because we're running out of money.
Well, let me give you
And
one
we're running out of
suggestion.
money to the point where in 2011, the first quarter, we may actually run out of money.
No, it's 2012.
No, it is not. It's 2011.
He's back to 2011?
Yeah, it's the first quarter of 2011.
And we're gonna have a 20%
We have a cash
tax
flow
increase.
problem.
Let me give you
know,
a suggestion,
and the
and Bill will
beat goes
probably
on.
shoot me for it. John, suggestion. How much is that piece of land worth for Bill's Park?
Well, we could put
Well,
15
we need to
townhouses on there for a
talk.
couple
We
million
need, I
dollars.
like this conversation. We
No,
need to talk.
That's-
No, but it's not really
No, what
fair.
did the township pay for that park? $2 million?
There were a lot of-
No,
there are a
we
lot of
paid
heavy-
$900,000. I raised $200,000. I raised another $12,000 for the fountain. Last year, I went out and raised $1,650 to put the tot lot in there.
It's
What's
not
it wor- what's it
reasonable.
worth
We could
today,
start
Bill,
selling
if
off
you sold
parcels
it?
of
You know what?
land to
It's
pay for
worth-
the trash.
it's
You
worth-
could.
it's
But
worth-
no one's gonna
Sell
put,
that, I mean.
But
how many
nobody's gonna do
people-
that.
How
But
many
no-
people use that park?
it's not the point. Do we want another office building or condos sitting there?
You make money on it.
Well,
you're
that's
gonna
one
get-
philosophy. Like I
you're gonna
said,
get
no matter what we
tax
say,
revenue
you're
on
not
it.
gonna make everybody happy. But I don't think we should start selling off parcels of land just yet.
I'm all for open space, but it depends on where it is. You know, you're talking.
You'd have a hard time getting board commissioners to agree to sell off any land in
You're talking
Radnor.
7,400 households, you know, as far as the collection thing, cutting that off, versus how many people, I've gone by that park zillions of times, I never see anybody over it. How much is it costing the township to maintain that? I mean, these are the kind of things that I think should be discussed as far as how the township can save money. You know, it's just, all these little things accumulate and mean a lot of money. And then when we're in this financial bind, and I truly believe it's not gonna last, but right now, you know, we're gonna hurt. It's an economic turndown, and we're gonna come out of it. But I'll guarantee you, what you take away will never get back to us. So
I agree with
by
that.
the end of,
I agree with that.
by the end of this month, we are projected to spend $4 million of a fund balance. $4 million is the deficit for 2009.
Well,
Okay, no, this is real.
Yeah.
We had $6.5 million. By the end of this month, we'll be down $4 million. The budget we acted on this year said that we were only going to use about $1.5 million of that fund balance. We were off by $2.5 million. So we go through the end of this year, we go into next year, we're doing better because we made some big changes in this past year for next year. But the end of next year, we end up with a fund balance of around 5 or 6%. We need a 12% fund balance to meet our ordinance requirement. We're not going to have it. And then we go into 2011 with about 600,000, maybe $1 million, but we burn $1 million a month. Usually 1 to 2 million per month on total costs, but about $1 million on operations. I don't know where the money's going to come from.
Got to be creative,
I'm looking
John.
out to the first quarter of 2011, and we don't have enough money to carry the first 3 months.
All right, well,
And
we'll
we
talk
have
about
no-
the budget next
Well,
week.
I was going to say,
But we have
last
no
comment.
revenue, we have no revenue, strong revenue source first quarter because tax bills don't go out until later in the year. So all of a sudden now, we have to borrow lots of money just to keep operations going.
Hopefully, it's going to be temporary, John, because we're going to be running a leaner, meaner ship, and monies will come in, housing will pick up, et cetera, and then, we learn our lessons. But in the real world today, John, if you had that kind, you lost your job and this and that, I think you could be very creative. You're going to hawk this, sell that, things that aren't, totally necessary, and take your lumps. And then later on, you can buy the newer car or whatever. But it's a tough position. And again, like I said initially, you guys have a lot of responsibility. I don't know how you sleep at night, but keep thinking, and if there's anything I can do to be creative, and I just wish, as a whole, more people in the township would get involved. And I think together, we'd be a lot stronger township, and we're going to make it. All right,
I
that's
just
all I
want
got to say.
to say thank you for coming out.
Yep, thank you.
because- Well,
Art, I will- I will
but
stop
it's
over.
important that your voice be heard, because you have in many instances, a vocal minority stating certain things, and the silent majority is sitting back silently, and hopefully, some of the issues that are being discussed shake the silent
You're saying
majority from their
I'm a
complacency.
vocal minority?
No, I'm saying, I think you're part of the silent majority that's always starting
Well,
to come
it's
out.
all because it hasn't really hit everybody, and again,
Right.
the way it was presented, I don't think the people really knew
Yeah,
what
I think
was
it's,
going on.
I think, look, Enrique, Hank, and I were the three who said no. I think it's poorly conceived.
But
It's-
there are a
it's-
lot of
it's not
important issues
completely
that you
thought
have.
out,
This is
and-
just one of them.
Yeah, but,
Okay.
but again, people need to come out and voice their opinions.
Yeah. I'm disappointed. I thought this place would be loaded with people, and I personally would love to see more people in the township get involved. I mean, this is where it's happening. It's our money, too. All right, thank you.
You saw some of the dynamic in process tonight.
Okay, thank you.
I know you guys are as happy to see me as I am to come up here again tonight, and I'm sorry about that. I do want to make one comment on what I said earlier. I'm
Why
not
don't you
trying to-
introduce yourself for people that don't know you?
Oh, I'm
know.
sorry, Monday
That's
Novelli.
you.
I'm so used to being known.
Yeah.
The remarks I made about how sad I am about being at this meeting and the bitterness, I didn't mean to belittle anything that Mr. Bayshore has done, and I want to make that clear. I'm not going to say much tonight, except that I have yet to hear any discussion on my proposal that we have a minimal fee to take care of the trash problem. We have a sewer fee, and we have why not have a trash fee for a year or two till we clean this thing up? I have emailed you all, I think you got it before the last meeting, and I have yet to hear anything. A $50 a year will produce over $300,000. That's close to your number, Bill. $100 a year, which is less than $2 a week, will produce $740,000 a year. Why do you feel that you can't do this and let the people have the service that they want and have had over the years? It's a simple item, and it's something we can delete or take away once we get our proposals and our money back to where it belongs, and our budget where it belongs. I always used to tell my kids, and they remind me all the time, it's the little things that make a difference in life. And I think you've heard that even more and more these days. And I realize that to many people, the trash seems like a little thing right now. But to me and others, the service we have is one of the most important things that makes living in Radnor special. It's not a luxury, sir. The luxury you have is having Bill come out and campaign for you like nobody else can do and get you elected. That's a luxury. Don't forget it, because you have people to take care of. Gentlemen, I would like to hear a discussion on the fee, because I think it's a simple compromise, and you know it from what I read and from what I've told.
I'm going to be direct. I'm not going to support it. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think that asking us to pay an additional fee is reasonable. I don't think that this township should be institutionalizing the backyard trash pickup. I never thought we should. I've always been against it, and I'm still against it. So I'm just not going to support it, with all due respect to you. I think it is a luxury. I've always thought it was a luxury, and it's not an amenity that I'm going to support, and my constituents don't support it. So that's where I stand on it. I've been consistent since the day I came on this board.
You've been open about it, and certainly Bill has, and Mr. Fisher's been trying to keep the service, but also wants the budget taken care of. And at the last meeting, you reversed a decision that you made the prior meeting to keep it and reduce the personnel to somewhat. Now the last meeting, which I wasn't here, you automatically, not automatically, with the addition of the fourth commissioner, it got changed. And that was, I'm afraid, a little bit I owe you, I'll take care of it. That's my impression.
I can't speak. All I can say is from the first time that the issue of eliminating the rear yard trash pickup came up during budget time, probably 5 years ago, and we were told we could save somewhere between $500,000 to $600,000, I said, let's do it. I was in the minority, and I've been in the minority, but I've been consistent. I think that we should have done it years ago. I think it's time to do it now, and I'm going to continue to support my position on that.
I understand your position, and I have to appreciate it. I really do. I just think it's a big mistake, and I think Radnor Township deserves better. And it seems to me that the new people that come to Radnor, like you did a few years ago, 10 years ago or 12.
25.
There seems,
25.
Well, he's been here for 100, so 25 is
I've only
nothing.
been here 80, right? It seems to me that most of the newer people who move in here do, as you told me at the last time, that they've been doing it all their life, putting their trash out. And so they do it automatically when they come here. And then I've heard neighbors tell me that they put theirs out because they're putting theirs out and they're embarrassed not to do it. So I think you're going to hear from a lot of people that, and I don't think the $360 item was correct, because as I proposed to you, for less than $100 a year, you could maintain the service that we have now, if you're willing to do it and give the service to the people here in Radnor. They're good people, as you are, and you have a tough job, and I really do commend you all. And we have differences of opinion, but that's America. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah Pilling from Garrett Avenue. I didn't really want to talk about this tonight, but I read Mr. Novelli's article in the newspaper about the $50 surcharge, and I want to protest against it. The county taxes are going up. The township taxes are going up. We can be pretty sure the school district's going to go up. You've already talked about increasing the sewer rent, which is based on the volume of water used. So if you use rain barrels, whatever, you can reduce that, but we nevertheless have to pay it. Part B on our, I am a senior citizen, Part B on our Medicare is going up, but Social Security is not going up. That's a net loss. The supplemental has gone up 10%. I just received my electric bill. The gas rates are going up. And the rate caps come off of PICO starting in either 2010 or 2011. We have got to stop spending money. I think you're asking too much of the township residents. I'm sure you all read the article in the newspaper this week about the increase in unemployment along R5. It is no longer a joke. It is time for us to give up backyard pickup, and I have a practical suggestion. There are such things as trash can carts that the township could do a subscription, and you, through the bully pulpit of being able to buy in volume, you could buy those carts for those people who want them. They have wheels that their trash cans can go in. I've used them before. I lived in Bryn Mawr and had a hill like this to go up and down, and we didn't want the trash trucks, because one time they came down and the trash truck couldn't get up, and they brought in a tow truck, and the tow truck couldn't get it up, and it got stuck, and we ended up with 2 tow trucks and a trash truck. So I've done this for years. Let people subscribe to them. Buy them wholesale. Have a community project of the kids in the high school to assemble them. It's not very difficult. And let people buy them at a wholesale cost, so that those people who are too old or whatever can bring their trash down in their cart and then take it empty back. It will also prevent them from blowing over, from dogs getting in, raccoons, opossums, birds, whatever, getting in them. It's a very practical way to keep them organized. I wouldn't complain if I didn't have a suggestion, but I just don't see how you can ask us to give you another $50 for the privilege of certain people being able to continue to have backyard pickup when the bulk of us don't. And I was quite surprised last week when I drove along Newtown Road on trash day, and at almost every driveway, the trash cans were the foot of the driveway, and I consider that a very Tony neighborhood. So I don't think it's going to be as big a problem as you think, and it's time to bite the bullet. Thank you for listening.
Just don't you think those people who want that service should have the option to pay for it themselves?
I believe, if I've understood the articles about Lower Merion Township, they are going to pay for the privilege by the trash can. They're going to pay one fee for one trash can, a higher fee for 2 trash cans, and an even higher fee for 3rd trash cans. What I heard originally months ago was that was too difficult to administer, and that the trash men wouldn't know which driveway to go up and which driveway not. So the decision was it was all or nothing. If you can come up with another way so that someone who has a long driveway wants to pay several $100s, fine, put it to them. I believe the 3 cans in Lower Merion Township is going to be about $240 a year. And so what are they doing? They're proposing enlarging their trash cans to a 40-gallon, so they will have to pay for less. Certainly do that, but I really am not going to pay $50 for somebody else to have backyard pickup. I just don't think that's fair in this economy. And as a senior citizen, I really protest because my income is going down constantly. So I just wanted to speak about that. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jay Weber from Wayne, and I appreciate all you people that have been here forever. I actually just settled on selling my house in Lower Merion about 3 hours ago, so I might be the newest resident of Radnor Township. First question I have is there going to be any ordinance to make sure that the trash cans are removed from the street by the end of the night or business day? I have had experiences with neighbors in Lower Merion where trash cans sat out for 2, 3, 4 days, and I found that unappealing to the overall neighborhood. So as you all examine the trash thing, I would encourage you, if there isn't backyard pickup, to at least give the police and the neighbors the ability to control that people don't leave trash out there, especially.
I think the information that Bill provided to us said 11 o'clock at night, wasn't it, Bill?
You couldn't put it out before 5 o'clock, and it has to be in by.
Okay,
Yeah,
as I said, I just.
Yeah, we already have an ordinance now. We already have an ordinance now. That says 7 PM the day before.
7 PM the day before, 11 PM the day of collection.
Yeah.
When was the last time that ordinance was enforced?
Never.
Okay,
And it's not, I'm not blaming you guys, it's just not an
well,
ordinance.
it's a revenue stream for a Brook Township that they can find people, and it's the benefit of the overall community. So I encourage you to find those residents. Secondly, for the school, the people with school children, could the police help us understand the best way to protect our children when they're standing out at bus stops, waiting behind these yellow trash cans on the morning? Because it is kind of crazy when you come to some of these roads and they're trash cans, and trash cans. Just make sure that our children are protected as they stand out on the street. It does get scary, and lastly, Bill, seeing I'm going to be in your ward.
Where do you live?
On Church Road.
Church Road, okay.
I just need your email because I know there are a bunch of mothers that are in our community that want to email you about this specifically, as some of the younger husbands.
Yeah, I'm going door to door in my community.
No one's ever told them it would be a problem, so send
I
emails
just
to 'em.
I just said,
Send 'em
could I have
emails.
the email, your email, because
Yeah.
we go on the road 5 days a week and our wives come and say, I've got to get the trash, I'm upset. There's a growing swell among the mothers to want to communicate with the commissioners, and to be a good democratic process, I figured I should ask for your email so we can circulate it.
That'd be fine, but I'll be knocking on the doors and all the long driveways and all
Well,
that.
can you just give it to me right now?
If you go to the
it's on the-
township website.
Yeah, I don't give it
Okay.
out publicly because I don't want 100,000 emails.
if you go to-
It's on the
Township
township
business,
website.
yeah.
It is?
Yeah,
Okay,
under Board
that's
of
great.
Commissioners, it
Well,
should be there.
Bill
and
checks at least once a month.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's fine. I
His phone
I
appreciate
number
it.
answer
is
my
there.
phone every minute.
Well,
Anyone
I don't
call
want
me?
to inundate you with phone. I just
I'm
wanted to
happy
make
to,
sure
yeah.
I did my job to answer my wife's question.
Yeah,
So thank
good.
you all.
All right, Bill, I want you to do me a favor.
What's that, Clint? Whatever you want, you got it.
You want to keep rear yard trash
Well,
pickup.
We
You
disagree
can
on
do
that.
it. You said you were going to work it out.
I'm gonna work
and I
out the problem.
understood that
But
you
we're not
can
gonna
work
have
it
rear
out.
yard, Clint, because in those, when Tom was in favor of it, and you were against going to front yard, I was against going to front yard.
Yeah,
But in
you-
207,
you're one of the unique guys. That
In
you
207
always like taking out your trash.
no,
And you
Clint,
do it, you do it on a timely basis.
Clint.
The other people that take
Clint.
it out, leave the cans out for 2 or 3
in
days.
207, when I ran for reelection, I talked to my constituents, and the overwhelming majority want to save the $570,000 to go to front yard collection of trash.
It's
The people with the
270. It's not 570.
$500
Let's be clear.
$570,000.
270.
$570,000.
270, Bill.
Don't charge this lady
You don't know what you're talking
$50.
about. What?
Don't charge this lady that
I'm
doesn't
not.
want to get
I'm
charged
not.
$50. But you can charge the people that want to keep it, okay? And put whatever number
Yeah.
on it,
Yeah.
you figure it out.
No, that's right, Clint. I've talked to five or
Well,
six
why-
people that were
why don't
willing to
we-
pay.
Why don't we let people keep it that want to keep it?
Clint, I'm working on the problem, and I will solve it,
Okay,
okay?
all right. If you have to charge a fee, if that's the only way it's going to go, do it.
Yeah. Clint, you've
And
served
Tom,
with...
I hope you keep a little bit of open mind on this, okay? We're not institutionalizing this. It's been an institution. This
Well,
has
with
been a
with all
part of
due
our
respect to
community.
you, I personally have never been in favor of it, and
I know that, you've already told me that,
Okay.
but it's been in part of our town for years.
it doesn't make it something that makes sense. I think it's a waste
Yes,
of
it
money.
does. A majority of the people use it today.
Well, I disagree with you, okay? I
Majority
fundamentally
of the
disagree
township
with
that
you. I'm
uses rear
sorry.
yard trash.
I disagree
And they
with
want
you.
it. They want it
Well,
to continue.
I disagree with you. And, we can honestly
What
debate
about
it.
letting people pay for it?
If people want to pay for it, they can go hire a private contractor. There's a half a dozen different trash companies that would love
So we can't
to
have
come
the
and pick up
service
your
even if we
trash.
pay for it.
I don't think that makes sense. I think it's a more efficient use of township resources, not to require township employees to be walking down or up township residents' driveways. I think it makes more sense to have everybody take their trash out to the curb. It's more time efficient to do it that way. If you want to have a private contractor come down your driveway or your
Okay,
neighbor's
all right,
driveway, they can
okay.
do that.
About 1989, this Board of Commissioners adopted what we call the Radnor Enhancement Strategy. It had a lot of things that went with it. Planting trees, changing the sign ordinance, putting together a design review board. All of that was to enhance the township, the beauty of the township, and how it looked, the perception people got. This township has won many awards for being one of the better places to live, and that's been part of our mission for a lot of years. It's okay if Radnor is the only township in Pennsylvania that has rear yard trash pickup. It's okay. Especially if people are willing to pay for it. That should be okay. And that's one of the things that we've had in this community. A lot of people don't use it. They don't think it even exists because they didn't know any better. They put their trash out because their neighbors were putting it out. But that option should be available to people, and it's something that contributes not only to the community, the individuals, but it reflects itself in the values of our real estate. This town benefits from the positive image that we have vis-a-vis the rest of the communities. And we all benefit from that. So I hope you will at least consider it, okay?
I hear what you're saying, Clint. I think this township will continue to be a great township, whether the trash is picked up at the curb or in people's backyards. That's not going to make or break the quality of this township.
But I think the individuals should have a right to pay for it if they want to continue it.
I understand your position.
Thank you.
My name is Tom Ralph. I have lived in Radnor Township for 40 years, and I served on the Planning Commission for 8 years. And I want to echo the words of Clint Stonebeck. I believe that a real important quality of life issue in this township is curbside, is rear yard or side yard trash pickup. It really marks this township as something distinguished and something prettier than other places. It improves our quality of life, it improves our environment, and it improves the safety of our roads, and it costs surprisingly little. And I urge you to consider ways to keep it in the budget. Now, I don't have the solutions that you all have. And I frankly don't know exactly how much it will cost to keep it in the budget, but I do want to tell you that if you were to ask the members of the Planning Commission of the township today what they thought about it and the importance of side yard pickup to the overall health and welfare of the community, they would say continue to do it. And I urge you to try to find a way to do it. Thank you.
Al Murphy, Glenmurray Road. Repeating what some of the other people have said about rear yard pickup, I believe it should be kept in the budget. It's been in the budget for 75 years. It is a hallmark of this township, but besides the issues that have been described as luxury, it's not really a luxury. There's some practical reasons. One is many families today, to afford Radnor Township, both husband and wife work. And I have to say that people are not putting their trash out on the day of trash day. They're putting it out if they go away on a weekend, if they go away on a Friday. Trash goes out on Thursday. They don't pick it up until, whatever the night it is that they're coming back. So you're seeing trash cans on the street many days for many households. It's just not practical to have the township lined with trash cans every single day of the week, and that's exactly what's happening right now. Someone on my street I know puts it out on Thursday, they pick it up in anticipation of the pickup on Monday. It's just out there all the time. So as a practical matter, I think it makes sense to have it continue to be picked up in the rear yard. The other thing, from a safety standpoint, everyone knows on a windy day those cans end up blowing down the road. It certainly has happened on our street. You don't want to have that. All you need is one lawsuit with someone that's involved in hitting a trash can that's going to wipe out any savings you might have as it relates to eliminating rear yard pickup. And the other thing, from a safety standpoint, if I was looking to burglarize a home, I'd be driving around looking to see who's got their trash cans not taken into the backyard after the trash has been picked up. It's an obvious place for things to go. So I'd encourage you, we seem to be, after this tough year, looking for ways to be penny wise and pound foolish. And I think this is a mistake to eliminate this. And it's already been institutionalized for 75 years. Thank you.
Comments?
Any other public comment?
Move we adjourn?
Second?
Second. All those in favor?